This is a great example of how policy has a direct impact on business. A year ago, as I mentioned, Arcosa wind towers had no work for 2023. We were really struggling. And then, in August, the Inflation Reduction Act passes, and just a few months later, we received the largest wind tower order we have received in the history of the company. We announced this facility. We're investing $60 million. We're creating jobs. We're ramping up production in another 2 facilities of Arcosa, and I think we're just getting started. So, on behalf of the 6,000 employees of Arcosa and the communities where we are, I want to thank President Biden for pushing through this legislation and making it happen. I also want to thank Senator Heinrich, Senator Lujan, and Governor Lujan Grisham for being here, and also our great friends and partners from GE Vernova who made it happen also. So thank you very much. And with that, it's my honor to introduce the person who has made today possible, President Joe Biden.
Hey, folks, this is a team sport. It's a team sport. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Thank you for the nice comments. Antonio, please, if you have a seat, take it. Antonio, thank you for that introduction and for hosting us here today. Governor, you are where are you sitting? You're the very best, kid. You're the best. No. That's a fact. You're the best. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. And Senator Heinrich, I tell you what, I'm glad I was a flanker back. I'm glad I didn't have you on the other side as a tight end. But good to see you, man. Thank you, and thank your whole family. Thank you for leading. And that guy sitting next to you, Ben Ray Lujan, I don't know where he came from, but I tell you what, I told him, I'm prepared to help in terms of making sure that that those folks are taken care of, by the way. And Representative Stansbury, God love you, kid. I tell you what, you are really doing a great job. Thank you for all your cooperation. Thanks for your advice anyway. And Teresa Leger Fernandez, who isn't here today. Well, what am I thinking? I thought you had to leave. By the way, her son there, I tell you what, keep an eye on him. I may be calling him Mr. President someday. I don't know. Gabe is the one who couldn't be here today. He's incredible. You have an incredible congressional delegation. You really do here. First rate. You really do. And thanks to all the tribal leaders for being here. I just want you to know, I was raised by a guy most of you don't know. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, a great friend. His name was Danny Inouye. And he said, Joe, it's Indian nations. He taught me early on. But thank you for all you've done. We had a good day yesterday in your neighboring state, Arizona. I was able to put away just about 1 million acres of sacred land. Oh, no. That's good stuff. I got so tired over the last 15 years, and this is a little story I want to tell you about why I was telling the team here, I know I don't look it, but I've been around a long time. But I've never been more optimistic in my whole career than I am today about America's prospects in both foreign and domestic policy. Went through an awful long time watching companies in the last 15 years decide to invest overseas because labor is cheaper. shutting down factories all across America, all across America. And I ask myself, why do we have to put up with that? We're sending jobs abroad and importing products at home. We knew we could change that. I just knew we could change that. We have the best workers in the world. And my team, and I decided, you know, if you hold here, there's a law that was passed in the 30s. It says any money the Congress sends me to spend, I can insist that it all be spent on American products with American workers. No president's paid much attention to that in either party. But guess what? I'm paying attention. As a simple proposition, I mean this from the bottom line, we decided we're going to invest in America. And this company's a great example. They're now poised to be the leader in the wind industry. But a few years ago, they were laying off workers because we weren't investing in them. So we passed a significant climate legislation. Not only moves us away from fossil fuels to cleaner technologies like wind, but it means we're going to make things and new technology here in America. And there's no reason why we can't do it. We have the best educated, we have the most advanced technology in the world. Why are we not doing that? That's basically what we're talking about today when we talk about investing in America. So today I want to talk about our progress in growing the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. I came to office determined to move away from trickle-down economics. Not a whole lot trickled down on my dad's kitchen table when we were growing up. And focus instead on the middle class. Because the middle class built America. And guess what? Guess what? And unions built the middle class. That's not hyperbole, that's a fact. And folks, and when the middle class, I'm a capitalist, when the middle class does well, everybody does well. The poor were way up and the rich were able to be very rich. Just make sure they pay a little more of their taxes. But look, the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal have started to call my plan Bidenomics. Initially, I don't think they meant it with a great deal of respect. With all due respect toward them, our plan is working. It's working. The economy has grown since I took office. It grew faster in the last quarter than anyone expected. And, you know, we've created over 13 million brand new jobs since I took office. 13 million in less than 3 years. 90,000 new jobs right here in New Mexico. 800,000 manufacturing jobs nationwide. 800,000. None of you are tired of hearing me say this, but where is it written that America can't lead the world again in manufacturing? Because we're going to do just that. The leading manufacturer in the world. These are facts. It's not hyperbole. We've created more jobs in 2 years than any president in American history has in 4-year terms. Unemployment has been below 4% for the longest period stretch in 50 years of American history. And not only have we recovered all the jobs we lost during the pandemic, we now have more jobs than we did before the pandemic. Because unemployment's been so low for so long, workers aren't just finding more jobs, they're able to look for better jobs at higher pay. And according to the research survey, job satisfaction in America is higher than it's been in the last 36 years. Look, the share of working age Americans with jobs is as high as it's been in 20 years. That's never happened under my predecessor. So where are we now? Well, unemployment is down, and so is inflation. Remember, all the experts, including some that worked for me, told us that to get inflation under control, we need to lower wages and reduce the number of people working. No, that's been sort of gospel. Not a joke. Seriously. Some of you are in the audience are economists. You know that. But I never bought it. The problem was too many people are working, making too much money. That's not the problem. There's a lot of reasons for inflation is up. First, the pandemic. Second, the war in Ukraine. Third, broken supply chains. Now, one reason we've seen inflation fall by 2/3 without losing jobs is we're seeing corporate profits come back down to earth. We have more to do, but inflation is now at its lowest point in 2 years. In fact, we have the lowest rate of inflation among the world's major economies. No other economy, major economy in the world is inflation as low as we are. It's down from 9% to 3%. There's a lot more work to do. I'm not satisfied with where it is. More work ahead. The Washington Post recently suggested in the front page article, I think it's front page, that, quote, Republicans may have to find something else to criticize Biden for now that inflation is coming down. I'm sure they'll find something. At the same time, pay for low-wage workers has grown at the fastest pace in over 2 decades, and wages are growing faster than inflation. And we're continuing to make progress in fixing the supply chain. For example, we couldn't access semiconductors during the pandemic because the factories making them overseas were shut down. You all know semiconductors are those little small computer chips about the size of any of your fingertip that affect nearly everything in our lives, from cell phones to automobiles, refrigerators, to the most sophisticated weapon system, including the systems that Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories provide for our national security. America invented these chips. We invented them. We went to the moon. We made them work better. We made them more sophisticated. But over time, we went from producing nearly 40% of those chips, the world's chips, down to 10%. That's why I designated and I signed, and I insisted it be written and passed, the Chips and Science Act, exactly almost 1 year ago today, very short. Now, all over the country, semiconductor companies are investing a record billions of dollars. By the way, you know how much has been committed in the Chips and Science Act to be invested in America? $230 billion. $230 billion to bring chip production back home in Ohio, New York, Arizona, and right here in New Mexico. Look, just a few years ago, Intel cut 700 jobs at a semiconductor fab in Rio Rancho. Now they're expanding their fab with a $3.5 billion investment, creating 700 new jobs, many of which won't require a college degree. And by the way, of this over $200 billion, they're building fabs. They're just called factories. They're the size of a football field, not much wider than this. And guess what? Average salary is about $130,000 grand. And guess what? You don't need a college degree. Make over $100,000 is about time. And folks, unions are building the structures as well. Look, folks, that's Bidenomics. Since I took office, we've attracted over $500 billion in private investment in manufacturing and industries of the future right here in America. According to Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and Wall Street, my Investing in America agenda is leading to a boom of manufacturing investment. Spending on construction for manufacturing plants nearly doubled in the last 2 years, after growing only 2% the previous 4 years. Last quarter, factory construction contributed more to the gross domestic product than any time in 40 years. 40 years. Instead of exporting American jobs, we're creating American jobs, and we're exporting American products. And we're seeing it right here in America. We're seeing it in New Mexico as well. In 2008, Solo Cup Factory shut down right here, right where we're standing. 200 people lost their jobs. Nearly a decade and a half later, a plastics company bought the site. It shut down after 3 years, laying off 100 workers. It's been idle ever since. Now it's coming alive again. Koza makes wind turbines, wind towers. That's the thing that holds most. When I say that, people look at me like wind tower. You all know what a wind tower is. They look at me like, what the hell's a wind tower? That's a key component. You know, you have to have it to hold up those blades. You know how long, by the way, I was in eastern Colorado looking at the blades manufactured. Those blades are 103 yards long, longer than a football field. And by the way, they don't cause cancer. And by the way, wind energy is cheaper than fossil fuels. Solar energy is cheaper. A few years ago, business took a turn. They were forced to lay off 200 employees at plants all across America. Now, thanks to the new law I signed, making historic investments in clean energy, business is booming again. By the way, that we call it the Inflation Reduction Act. Within that is the act relating to the climate. And it's $368 billion. And when I passed that, not one single guy on the other team voted for it. Nobody voted for it, the other team. Since I signed that law, building the law, COSA has received $1.1 billion in orders for new wind towers. And today we're here breaking ground on a new plant that's going to create 250 new good-paying jobs. And meanwhile, we're speeding up permitting for transmission lines so wind energy produced by these towers reaches people's homes. Because what's happening now is it's hard to get a lot of these towers are old, and everybody is not in my neighborhood. They don't want a big new tower going up. So we're strengthening the towers, and we're going to go underground. It costs 6 times as much to go underground, but we're learning how to do that more cheaply so that it doesn't cause the forest fires and all the things that happen when major windstorms knock these lines down. My administration recently completed a review of a proposed Sunzee line, a transportation energy from a planned wind farm here in New Mexico and Arizona and California. So you're going to generate the wind here, and the energy here, and be able to transmit it all the way across Arizona and into California as well. These projects are expected to create 2,000 new construction jobs and up to 150 permanent jobs, providing clean energy for up to 3 million Americans. 3 million. And reducing the pressures of climate change. Like I said, Bidenomics is about bringing supply chains back home. COSA makes wind towers that's going to go into turbines made by GE Verona. Excuse me, I mispronounced it. Vernova in Florida and New York. Pattern Energy will use these turbines to build the largest wind farms in the Western Hemisphere, spanning Lincoln, Torrance, and San Miguel counties in New Mexico. And Sunzee will use that energy to power homes all across the Southwest. It's Bidenomics. It's cheaper. It's cheaper. That's what we're talking about, investing in America. You know, this company says investing they're making here is a direct result of the law we signed almost exactly a year ago, the most significant investment in clean energy in combating the existential threat of climate change ever anywhere in the world. Like I said, it's $368 billion. And Governor Lujan Grisham is leading the way, launching New Mexico Community Solar Program so families will save money on electric bills, stopping leaks of super polluting methane from oil and gas operations. We're capping thousands of those wells all across America, beginning in western Pennsylvania, coming west, and putting New Mexico on a path for a cleaner, cheaper electric transmission future as well, this state. Folks, when I think climate, I think jobs. I don't think all the dangers, there's real danger, but the jobs to fix the problem. My mother used to have an expression. After I lost my wife and daughter, she was trying to console me. She said, Joey, out of anything bad, something good will happen if you look hard enough. Well, all across America, we're looking. There are going to be a lot of good things that are going to happen as a consequence of this problem we're facing. What our COSA is doing here is part of a much broader clean energy manufacturing. It's going to happen in big cities and rural communities as well. Like in Colorado, where CS Wind broke ground on what will be the world's largest wind tower manufacturing plant. And coincidentally, CS Wind is Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, you know, that very quiet Republican lady. It's in her district, who, along with every other Republican, voted against this bill. And it's making all this possible. And she railed against its passage. But that's okay, she's welcoming it now. When I ran for office, I promised to be president for all Americans. Whether you live in a blue state or a red state, I'm going to keep my promise. Before we made this historic clean energy investment, Siemens Corporation laid off workers who were making wind turbine parts and put the plant in Iowa and Kansas into what they now call, as they refer to as hibernation. I hibernated in Iowa for a while, but look, now we're reopening both these plants and rehiring workers. In New York, GE is investing $50 million for a new manufacturing assembly line making critical components for turbines in partnership with organized labor. Every one of these companies has pointed to the clean energy law that we originated and I signed as a reason for making these investments. And we're making sure rural communities are benefiting from these historic investments as well. It's not just urban areas. We're investing over $160 million in New Mexico to support conservation of climate-smart agriculture and forestry, like improved water management. We're grazing livestock in ways that improve soil health, helping farmers and ranchers get paid for doing the right thing, planting material that absorbs carbon from the air, and not just. Look, we've launched the Rural Partners Network, placing federal employees on the ground in New Mexico to help rural communities take advantage of the federal resources so they're there and can, because this is all new stuff. People on the ground to say, here's how you do it. This is what you do. Building an economy from the bottom up and the middle out means strengthening our rural economy so farmers and ranchers and their children don't have to leave home to find opportunities for work. Where I come from, it's all about pride. It's all about restoring pride, being able to make a living in the community you love and where you were raised and not have to leave. Folks, it's all part of my plan. The plan is to invest in America. We're transforming our country, including by rebuilding America's infrastructure. We used to have the best infrastructure in the world. We were number one in the world. That's ports, railroads, airports, roads, everything. You know where we are now? We're number 13 in the world. China used to be number 8, now we're number 2. How can you have the best economy in the world with a second-rate infrastructure? It's not possible. And through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we already announced over 37,000 projects in 4,500 communities all across America, including $3.6 billion in investments right here in New Mexico. So far, we're just getting started. For example, the city of Albuquerque is getting $25 million to rebuild the Uptown Transit Center, making it safer and more accessible and easier for folks to get uptown and helping transform the area into a vibrant community hub. We're investing $160 million in eastern New Mexico rural water system to build a new transmission pipeline providing a critical water supply to nearly 70,000 people from Clovis to Portales to Cannon, Cannon Air Force Base. Look, right now, over 114,000 homes and small businesses across New Mexico don't have access to high-speed internet. We're investing over $1 billion in this state to connect every corner of this state, especially rural communities and family farms, to affordable internet. And people sometimes say, why are you doing that? Imagine if a long time Roosevelt and telephones came along saying, we're not going to help invest in telephones. Come on, man. I don't know what the hell we're thinking. Already, we're saving nearly 170,000 New Mexico families $30 a month on their internet bills so far. We're making investments like this all across the country. If I could pause for another second, there's a distinguished senator from the state of Alabama who used to be a pretty good football coach. And he's railed against this legislation. And then I noticed he made a big announcement. Alabama's going to get $200 million for it. And I thought, wait a minute. Didn't he rail against that for a long, long time? I was inclined to go down and help him celebrate, but I decided not to. Look, we can see exactly where we're making these investments, and you can see exactly where they are. If you go to invest.gov, you'll know exactly where every one of these investments is going throughout America. These investments create thousands of good-paying jobs. We're making sure workers have the skills to do the jobs. For example, in New Mexico, we're funding the mobile training unit run by the plumbers and pipe fitters union, UA Locals 412. It's going to train plumbers and pipe fitters and HVAC workers with a focus on training Latino workers, indigenous people, and people recovering from substance abuse. And I know you're probably thinking what a lot of our very conservative Republican friends, Biden's spending all this money, man, my taxes are going to go up. Unless you make more than $400,000 a year. Your federal taxes aren't going to go up a single penny. And guess what? I did all this without raising anybody's taxes in the middle class. And one other little thing. During this process, I cut the federal budget in 2 years by $1.7 trillion. 1.7, the largest anyone's ever done in 2 years. The last guy increased the national debt by 40%. Folks, we've done all this out raising taxes in the middle class, and I promise we'll never raise federal tax on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. I've kept that promise. I'm going to keep it. Unlike the last president, and as I said, my first 2 years in office, the federal deficit fell by $1.7 trillion. And we got what we promised. We can cut the federal deficit and still do all the rest of this. Folks, every one of my friends in the other team in Congress voted against clean energy investments. And the vast majority voted against the bipartisan infrastructure. But that hadn't stopped them from claiming credit. Now the billions of dollars and thousands of jobs are coming to their states. Like I said at the State of the Union address, I'll see them at the groundbreaking. Look, let me close with this. I'm not here to declare victory in the economy. We have a lot more work to do. We have a plan, and it's turning things around. Bidenomics is just another way of saying restore the American dream. 40 years of trickle-down economic policy limits the dream to those at the top. Well, I believe every American willing to work hard should be able to get a job, no matter where they live in the heartland, small towns, raise their kids on a good paycheck, be able to keep their roots where they grew up. My dad used to have a saying, and I mean it sincerely. He'd say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your pride. It's about dignity. And he meant it, not a joke. It's about dignity. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. It's like being able to say, you think I'm kidding, but some of the folks in Congress knew my dad. He meant it. And he said, the real question, Joey, is at the end of the month, after you pay all your bills, is there anything left? You have a little breathing room, just a little bit of breathing room. Well, folks, that's part of the American dream. And that's Bidenomics. It's rooted in what I've always worked best in this country, investing in America, invest in Americans. Because when we invest in our people, when we strengthen the middle class for stronger economic growth, it benefits everybody, the poor, the wealthy, everybody. And for the longest time, we've been told to give up on American manufacturing, that it can't happen again, and we just can't do it anymore. Well, as you might have noticed, I've never believed that. As I said, America used to lead the world in manufacturing. We're going to do it again. I can honestly say I've never been more optimistic about America's future. Just remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's nothing beyond. I mean it sincerely. Think of any objective we've set as a goal that we've ever not met. Name one. No matter what it is. We've never, when we've worked together, failed. Nothing's beyond our capacity to work together. And God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you so much.
The United States, accompanied by Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona and the Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas.
Thank you. Well, hello everyone and welcome to the White House. And I know that many of you travel to be a part of this moment and haven't taken time away from your family and other necessary work. So we're grateful to all of you for giving us just a little more of that time this morning now that yesterday's storm has passed. I'm telling you, it was so quiet here at the White House last night because they sent everybody home. There was no Secret Service. And no, I'm just kidding about that. So anyway, I want to thank you, all of you, for being here. And our purpose today is powerful. So I want to thank you for your commitment to this cause. And as some of you probably know, probably everybody here knows it, I teach at a community college not far from here. And right now, educators are in the final weeks of those summer breaks, where the teachers are putting the finishing touches on their lesson plans. I know I am. I have my first article all run off. I'm ready to go. The linoleum floors, as you all walk into the schools, they're just waxed. They never looked like that again after the first day. The scuffs of sneakers, and there's a possibility, the hum of possibility in the air as the year seems to stretch out in front of us. And, you feel that excitement. If any of you are in the classroom, which I'm sure most of you have been, or, you can't even sleep the night before, right? No matter how many years it's been, you still feel that excitement. It's the new year filled with amazing things to discover as we learn and we grow together. And with each new semester, technology becomes a more indispensable part of making sure that our students' imaginations can soar and ensuring that administrators can run their schools smoothly and safely. But in districts around the country, cyber attacks have brought those systems to a halt. And I know most of you have seen it. Social security numbers and medical records stolen and shared online. Classroom technology paralyzed and lessons ended. So if we want to safeguard our children's futures, we must protect their personal data. And that's why my husband Joe is bringing together experts from across his administration to help strengthen cybersecurity for our elementary, middle, and high schools. So today, not only do we have with us the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Chairwoman of the Federal Communications Commission. And we're joined by leaders from the National Security Council, the Office of the National Cyber Director, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and the FBI. That one was easy. So they'll be announcing resources for districts like yours and sharing best practices to help stop those attacks before they begin and resolve them more quickly when they do. But we can't do this alone. And that's why we're working with businesses across the country. And later, they'll be sharing the new commitments they are making to ensure the technology of our classrooms is reliable and more secure. I know because I teach in a computer lab. So it's going to take all of us, local governments, state and federal agencies, educators, businesses, labor leaders, and nonprofits, sharing our good ideas and innovative solutions to protect our students. So I'm grateful to all of you for being part of these discussions. You are on the front lines supporting your communities. And I want to ask you to keep going. Together, each day, we're building the foundation of our children's future. And we must do all that we can to keep it sound and strong and ready for whatever life may bring. Because every student deserves the opportunity to see a school counselor when they're struggling and not worry that these conversations will be shared with the world. Every classroom should be enriched by new technologies, giving students who love computers the skills they need to succeed. And every family should know its information will stay safe and secure so that our children can keep reaching for the endless possibilities that exist inside of each one of them. So thank you. Thank you all for what you're doing. Thanks. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce someone who is working tirelessly to support our children and their digital security, Secretary Miguel Cardona, my friend. Thank you.
Good morning. How is everyone? Isn't it great to have a teacher in the White House? How about Dr. Biden? Thank you. Thank you for your leadership and for always understanding how important it is to make sure that our schools are safe for our students and our educators, and for championing it the way you do. And I want to thank everyone for being here. I know we had a little bit of a curveball yesterday, but either you packed well or you supported our local stores and bought yourself another shirt for today. Really, really glad that you're here, that we're here together, here to discuss a very important topic, cybersecurity in our schools. When we were at the height of the pandemic, it wasn't board games that got my own children the socialization that they need. It wasn't even books or sports because, they weren't able to get out onto the field. For my son, at the time he was about 16 years old, it was his Xbox. And for those of you with teenagers, you may know where I'm going with this. He was playing Madden with his cousins online. He was socializing with his family members and his friends. That was the socialization he was getting. For my daughter, who was about 14 at the time, it was an app called House Party. Anyone familiar with that? Well, that was her way of seeing her friend's face. Because she was told 2 weeks later, you're going to be back in school. And after the second month, it was really hard and scary. So that's what she used to socialize with her friends. And I mention this first because it shows that technology can benefit our young people. At its best, technology can help our students connect with each other and their learning in a way that nothing else can. It also reminds us that we live in a digital age. As I always say, the device is the new pencil in our schools. Last school year, the average number of unique educational technology tools accessed per school district was over 2,500. And keep in mind, those numbers don't even capture the social media apps students are using or the digital infrastructure and systems our schools rely on. So when schools face cyber attacks, the impacts can be huge. Think about the ransomware attack that led to more than 500,000 students and staff members in Chicago public schools having their personal information disclosed. Or think about the school district in my home state of Connecticut that had to postpone the first day of school for 18,000 students because a cyber attack hit a system the district used to manage school bus routes. Let's be clear. We need to be taking these cyber attacks on school as seriously as we do the physical attacks on critical infrastructure. That's why today, the Department of Education released a series of briefs on how to strengthen the digital infrastructure of education. We need collaboration within government to make that possible, which is why we're also committing to establish a new government coordinating council. Look, we can't talk about intentional collaboration at the local level, at the state level, if we're not modeling it here at the federal level. And that's what we're going to do. I'm really excited about that. I think that's the direction we need to be. We need to be proactive about this. We need to get the best thinking from all over the country. Be proactive, not wait for emergencies to happen, to make sure we have a plan. These represent big steps forward. Together, we can better manage the risks of cyber attacks on our schools so we can better guarantee the benefits technology has to offer our children in education. I want to give a special thanks to Christina Ishmael over here and our Office of Educational Technology for their leadership. The passion that she has not only on protecting students from cybersecurity, but in intentional collaboration is what we need here. I appreciate your leadership and Deputy Secretary Cindy Martin also your passion on this topic. As a former superintendent of schools in San Diego, you recognize how critical this is and what an opportunity we have to lead our country in this space. So thank you for your leadership as well. And speaking of leadership and partners, I am really delighted to introduce our next speaker, my cabinet colleague, but really a friend, someone that I've grown to know over the last 2.5 years and really admire the passion with which he leads. Our Secretary Mallorca. Secretary?
Good morning. Thank you, Secretary Cardona. Dr. Biden, thank you for convening us and for hosting us. I should say at the very outset that I have always loved school, except math. All of us here today are acutely aware of how demanding it is to work in education. The challenges that students, teachers, parents, administrators, school board members, front office staff, tech support, and outside vendors even confront every day would have been unfathomable even 5 years ago. Cybersecurity threats are merely the latest such challenge. I wish that were not the case. The education ecosystem, like critical care units in hospitals, should be sacrosanct, free from cyber attacks and other threats. Children deserve the ability to learn and grow in a secure setting, and you all deserve the ability to focus on what you do best: teaching, nurturing, caring for, and inspiring our children. The reality, though, is that the cyber threats we face have expanded to every community and every institution across our country, including schools. That is why we at the Department of Homeland Security, alongside our partners across the Biden-Harris administration, are committed to providing communities and school systems with the support and the resources necessary to protect themselves, their infrastructure, and their students. Earlier this year, we released, through CISA, our Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and its extraordinary leader, Jen Easterly, is here, a free, first-of-its-kind cybersecurity toolkit for K through 12 institutions, compiling government resources and offering guidance on how stakeholders can best implement them. We're also working closely with technology manufacturers to ensure that what they provide to school systems is secure by design, secure right out of the box. And, to paraphrase President Biden, We are showing our values not only in our words and in our actions, but in our budgets as well. Earlier today, we put out a new call for applications to our state and local cybersecurity grant program, which for the second year in a row will make hundreds of millions of dollars available to school districts and governments to harden their cyber defenses. We have many, many other means of support available to you from teams across our federal government, and our colleagues will highlight many of them for you throughout this summit. I want to strongly urge every school system and every community to take advantage of these resources and to do so with urgency. Do not underestimate the ruthlessness of those who wish to do us harm. They have proven their willingness to steal and release such private student information as psychiatric hospitalizations, home struggles, and suicide attempts. Do not wait until a crisis comes to start preparing for one. An ounce. That applause was prompted by our Deputy National Security Advisor, friend and colleague, Ann Neuberger. An ounce of prevention today is worth a pound of cure tomorrow, especially when an ounce of prevention enables you to spend more time on what really matters, the education and well-being of our students. I join First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, Secretary Cardona, in thanking you for being here. I thank you for your commitment to our children and our schools and to building a better tomorrow. Our Deputy National Security Advisor, Ann, will kick off the rest of the summit. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today, particularly because it is take two. Thank you to all who stayed overnight to come together, to meet each other, and to work together on this incredibly important topic for our children. By my count, we have an incredible group today. We have nearly 20 school superintendents in this room from across the United States. From Talladega County Schools, Dr. Susanna Lacey, to Albuquerque Public Schools, Mr. Robert Elder. A thank you to all the school superintendents who have traveled here to be here today. We have teachers like Ms. Kathleen Bullock, second grade special ed teacher from Brent Elementary School here in DC, and teachers associations like the National Association of Secondary School Principals. We have at least 15 CIOs and Chief Information Security Officers, folks who are on the front lines on the topic of cyber. From Cambridge, Massachusetts, Mr. John Cramen, to Fulton County in Georgia, Ms. Emily Bell. There's education company CEOs from Girl Security, City Bridge, and ClassLink, and founders of Gulatech Adventures and Diverting Hate, among others. And almost 200 people gathered here today, committed to education, committed to school. Each of you deserve your own recognition for what you do for kids. Thank you for what you do for children every day. Thank you truly for being here today to discuss an important issue, that whether one is an administrator, a teacher, a parent, it's close to each of our hearts. I'd also like to take a moment to welcome close colleagues from the White House, Dr. Arthi Prabhakar, the President's lead science advisor, and Ms. Campbell Walden, Acting National Cyber Director. Our gathering today and the quick reschedule, putting this on Dr. Biden's and the Secretary's calendars, represents really the priority that keeping kids safe means to the President and the entire administration, because today is about that commitment to ensure our kids can go back to school safely. Criminals are targeting schools with cyber attacks. There were 8 school systems in the last school year alone that were disrupted, 4 that actually had to close for a period of time because of cyber attacks. And as we heard, that's a part of it. Perhaps even more importantly, there's sensitive data of children. There's psychiatric information, sensitive information that really should be protected, released online, data that hurts kids, hurts families, and potentially hurts their futures. So today is about changing that dynamic together. Keeping our students, our teachers, and our schools safe from cyber attacks is about 3 things. Equipping schools with knowledge, funds, and people. The knowledge of how to prevent cyber attacks and respond quickly if they do occur. The funds to ensure that school tech can be upgraded and secure. And finally, the people, because we know that school IT administrators are often short-staffed. So expert teams to help them do the work and secure their schools is key. And today you'll hear significant commitments announced by both government and private sector in each of those categories: knowledge, funds, and people. You'll hear about that in each of the panels. We'll begin with a panel focused on learning from a ransomware incident against a school. We'll move to an announcement of government commitments, then one of private sector commitments: funds, security, secure tech, and finally, we look forward to welcoming a group of school leaders who inspired us by the innovation they brought to their schools after a significant ransomware attack. So now that we're reset, I'd like to invite the first panel of speakers to join me on the stage. So I'm pleased to introduce our first panel of speakers. Just about a year ago, on Labor Day weekend, the Los Angeles Unified School District experienced a very significant ransomware attack that disrupted the district's access to email and key systems and applications they need to operate their schools. However, as you're about to hear, the swift action by the school district, closely supported by the federal government, ensured LA schools opened on time on September 5th, a remarkable example of the power of leadership, preparation, and collaboration. I can share from my own experience over that Labor Day weekend that School Superintendent Alberto Carvalho's calls for support were met with quick action. The White House convened federal departments and agencies, and the Department of Education became the focal point for leading that response. So here to speak about the lessons learned from the Department of Education's perspective, I invite Deputy Secretary Cindy Martin, a former school superintendent herself and a passionate leader on education and focused on the health and safety of kids. Deputy Secretary Martin.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and more importantly, thank you for your collaboration. You heard our secretary talk about intentional collaboration. That's what we believe at the Department of Education. In simple kindergarten terms, we say teamwork makes the dream work. I was a kindergarten teacher, so I always bring that in. But your collaboration and the way you helped bring all of the folks together that we could galvanize for support. When we got that phone call, Labor Day weekend, from Superintendent Carvalho, as being a former superintendent in San Diego, I knew he needed help, and he needed help now. And I understand President Biden's commitment to a whole of government approach, our secretary's commitment to being a service agency. We went into quick action. But the action wasn't us deciding at the federal level, what do we need to do to LA Unified or for LA Unified, as if we had the answers, although we had critical information they needed. We needed to listen closely to our superintendent, what he needed immediately on the ground, so we could bring the support together in a synchronistic way that would get the outcomes that I knew he needed to get his schools open for the first day of school, which is most important because kindergartners only get their first day of kindergarten once. And so we got on the phone very quickly, and you talked about what you needed, and then we started collaborating. And so I'm yielding the rest of my time so you can hear from him on how he led impeccably what happened. Although we wished it never happened, it did. and we want to hear lessons learned, because this is what you and I dreamed up back then when it was going on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I want to begin by, number one, thanking the vision, the collaboration, the courage, and the determination of this administration and its leaders. Dr. Biden, Secretary Mayorkas, and my dear friend, Secretary Cardona, and my dear, dear friend, Cindy Martin. And two people who I called on that fateful weekend are actually on this stage. First, Cindy Martin, and second, Ann Neuberger. The level of collaboration that we benefited from every single federal agency, as well as local and state governments, was really unparalleled, and put us in a position of being able to resume regular schooling without disruption the Tuesday after Labor Day weekend. So I'd like to detail for you very, very quickly 3 phases of what we went through. Number one, pre-event preparation. Secondly, event crisis management in a very strategic way. And thirdly, post-event decisions and resiliency building based on the learned experience. So prior to the event, I have to say that LAUSD probably had a set of assets, tools, and systems in place, as well as professional development and human skill assets that were significantly above average. We had multi-factor authentication on its way. We had protocols for training of staff on management and protection. But we had also begun work with private sector entities in ensuring that data exchange agreements were in place, ensuring that the protocols, prerequisites, and elements of protection that we demanded were reflected in the vast majority of contracts with private sector entities that relied on data exchange with our school system, ensuring that there were no unnecessary doors open. In addition to that, we had begun the work of actually securing our systems in the event of this type of attack. What we had not done was what we were able to build during the event, which is actually develop a Rolodex of influencers in solving the problem. So the calls to the FBI, to Cindy Martin, the Department of Education, Deputy Secretary Martin, to National Security Council. I remember a phone conversation with Ann Neuberger at the White House. The fact that a day later we had 11 special agents with the FBI and federal entities in our house co-managing the situation was incredibly powerful. But let me speak very briefly about one critical thing we did, which was, since we had individuals 24/7 monitoring the flow of data, we were able to detect an attempt at exfiltrating information from our system. We made a critical decision to actually shut down all systems. That benefited us at 2 levels. Number one, out of the 11 million gigabytes of information we possess, only 500 gigabytes were exfiltrated. Still significant, but it could have been much worse. We knew that we're going after significant assets specific to payroll systems, personally identifiable Social Security numbers, and student data, as well as contract information for our multi-billion-dollar general obligation bond. They were able to encrypt systems. They were able to exfiltrate very little of those systems because of our swift action. It was the unparalleled bringing down of governmental silos that often exist by having CISA, FBI, NSC, as well as local and state entities come together and work on the same stage that we were able to recover quickly. So here are my learnings and strong advice to the nation. Number one, have a backup plan that is independent from your digital assets and systems to restore education for kids, particularly attendance taking, transportation, food service, critically important, payroll. We were able to transition very quickly because we had backup plans that we were able to activate very quickly. Secondly, have that Rolodex ready to call on individuals who can help you manage a crisis, a situation that you yourself alone cannot manage. You do not have the tools or the intelligence. Federal agencies had, and they delivered big. Thirdly, have an understanding with those agencies about elements that you should share So when we shut down our systems, we were able to create a laboratory for federal agencies to be able to retrieve information, the nuggets of information that the bad actor had left behind. They were able to study it very, very quickly, report it back to us, inform the nation. The combination of those efforts proved powerful. Post-incident, we were able to restore all of our systems. We were able to reopen schools without interruption, feed kids and transport kids and take attendance. But we recognized that the one entity we needed wasn't in place yet. So we moved quickly in achieving three things. Number one, strict guidelines for private sector interaction with us, specific to data exchange. Secondly, the hiring of a CISO, which we did not have. And I know there are many smaller rural districts in America that will not have the resources to go out and hire a CISO. Rely on larger districts, on consortia, on associations to share the cost of that type of talent. Do not go without one. Thirdly, critically important, aggressive professional development, the retooling and reskilling of our own workforce on the basis of what we learned. More often than not, and that was our case, after an extensive audit and analysis of the incident, even redoubling our efforts in terms of exposing our own vulnerabilities through intensive periodic penetration tests to determine the resiliency of our systems. More often than not, it is not necessarily the extreme expertise of the cyber terrorists that will gain access to your system. It is a backdoor that's left open. That was our case. So we've learned from this experience. We also brought to the board something that is a strong recommendation: alter, through delegated authority, the ability to procure while living up to government and sunshine public records laws, contracts with assets, tools, and systems without necessarily, unwarrantedly, broadcasting to the wider community, including the bad actors, how you are arming yourself and protecting yourself. I close by once again thanking every agency represented here for the support they provided us, and in return the information we were able to reciprocally provide to the nation that I believe has resulted in a better level of preparation. I've never seen the level of collaboration that I've seen. And the very last thing, we did pen a letter to the nation requesting additional support and additional flexibility in terms of funding, co-signed by over 2,000 educational leaders across the country, originating from Los Angeles. And I appreciate the fact, because this administration, this government read it, understood the crisis, and responded with resources, toolkits, and support. Thank you very much.
I think if anyone doubted that experience is the best teacher, even among a group of teachers, I think your words, Alberto, would put that to rest. I'd like to now turn it over to the Deputy Director of the FBI, who had a minor crisis right behind him. Deputy Director of the FBI, Paul Abate.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everyone, for having us here today. It's a great privilege to join these colleagues and partners. I'm just going to echo and reinforce everything that the superintendent said. When we look at, our number one goal in advance is to be preventative and to stop cyber attacks from occurring before they happen. And that requires the ultimate collaboration that was on display here. In the unfortunate instances and situations where an attack does occur, what the Los Angeles Unified School District had done in advance and what they did in the midst of the crisis, the decision made, is a model for exactly how we would suggest everyone do it. But I want to go back to beforehand, because as the superintendent said, we knew each other before the crisis occurred. And that made all the difference in the world. In fact, some of our agents and analysts and leadership were on the campus with partners and colleagues from the school district just the week before, which is pretty amazing. And having those trusted relationships put us in a position to help and support the school district in responding to what occurred there, and then helping to recover and reconstitute very quickly, as was described. The two messages I want to bring to each and every one of you from the FBI is, one, form and build that relationship of trust on preparedness in advance. So hopefully we can prevent something bad from happening, but if it does occur, we're in a position to help and support you in responding to it. And in the event that something does happen, if there is a cyber attack, please call us immediately, because timeliness does matter, and that's what was on display here. We were able to send in a complement of agents, investigators, analysts, technical experts, computer scientists, data scientists, and others. Within 24 hours, we had teams on the ground, both from our local office in Los Angeles. Here from headquarters, we have what we call a cyber action team, which is comprised of the ultimate experts in response and within this discipline in handling cyber threats. And we had 15 personnel and more on the ground immediately, side by side with our partners from the school district. And it matters in multiple ways. One, we're a victim-focused organization. We care, so we're there to provide support, reassurance, all the information and intelligence that we can share with a victim and bring to bear in resolving the crisis, and that was on display here. There's real actions we can take. As the superintendent described, we were able to freeze 2 cloud accounts based on the information we gleaned very quickly and prevent sensitive and personally identifiable information that pertain to students and staff members and teachers from getting out into the public that the cyber criminals were using to attempt to extort the school district. That was huge. We were able to take the information and intelligence gleaned quickly and with our partners from CISA, the cybersecurity advisory quickly, which informed other potential victims and put them in a position to further defend their networks and systems. We were also able to identify cryptocurrency wallets that the bad actors were using, and again, gather indicators of compromise that went into the advisory. All of these things happened very quickly and no doubt led to preventing other attacks from occurring against other school districts across the country and probably even around the world. We're also able to serve as a gateway for other government resources to come in. With CISA, with us, we mutually inform each other when things occur. We want to do that rapidly so we can bring all of our resources to bear collectively from across the federal government and beyond. All of these things matter. So again, I would say make the relationship if you don't have it already. We have 56 main hub field offices around the country, and then we have several hundred sub-offices. Every square inch of our great country is covered, and there's somebody there for you if you don't have the relationship already. We're here for you in that regard. And in the event that something happens, call us immediately, and I promise you and assure you that we will have the personnel there side by side with our partners in government to help you get back on your feet and protect people going forward in the future. So thank you for the partnership to each and every one of you, and thank you all for giving us the opportunity to be here today. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you so much. I want to take a moment. I want to take a moment, to note, as the applause noted, that what Paul was referencing was that the FBI is available 24/7. When we called on the cyber incident, if I recall correctly, it was either Friday or Saturday night, and there was no question that a team of men and women would, on a holiday weekend, go where the mission called them, go where they were needed. And for that, just a moment of applause and appreciation for the men and women of the FBI. So as we're hearing, an ounce of preparation is worth many, many pounds of going through an incident. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the Director of CISA, the Cyber Infrastructure and Protection Agency, Director Jen Easterly.
Great. Thank you so much, Ann, and thank you for your leadership. I've been doing this for almost 3 decades, and the level of collaboration, I love the teamwork makes the dream work, exactly. across the federal government, state and local industry is better than it's ever been. And I won't add a ton to what's already been said, other than to really reinforce that what you just heard from Superintendent Carvalho is truly the Harvard Business School case study of how to get this right. I mean, not just the building resilience ahead of time, but also how the actual response was handled in terms of sharing information with FBI, with CISA, knowing that it might not just be a threat to the LA Unified School District, it could be a threat to other school districts. So sharing that information rapidly so that we could do that advisory that Paul talked about. Sharing information transparently, saying what was going on. You might not know everything at the moment that it occurs, but certainly providing information to keep people informed was incredibly important, both to the government, but of course to the students and the parents of the Unified School District. And this event today means so much to me as director of CISA, but more so as a mom, because I know what that's like to have that uncertainty. Certainly, many of us went through it in the pandemic. So we are doing what Paul just mentioned, where he's got field offices around the country. We have built out our folks in the field, cybersecurity advisors, state coordinators, many of the CIOs and CISOs who are here have worked with my teams out there. We are there also to provide support. One of the other things that was sparked by the incident last September was the toolkit that we worked on with great friends across the community. I think Doug Levin's out there from K-12 6 to ensure that educators, school districts, teachers have basic tools that they need to be able to implement the basic protections. We understand that schools are often target rich, sadly, as Ann said, but resource constrained. And so we want to be there with our free services, with our best advice, with our guidance, with our counsel, to make sure that you all have what you need to raise the baseline on cybersecurity, but also importantly, to know how to respond effectively to reduce and mitigate that risk and be the example that you just heard about from Superintendent Carvalho. So I'm pleased to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for sharing your invaluable perspectives.
We have one last question for the superintendent.
Fantastic.
So did you pay the ransom?
Did I pay the ransom? We don't negotiate with terrorists. We did not pay the ransom, and I have to say that my last comment on that, we would never. By the way, that was a very elegantly stated recommendation from our partners at the FBI. So we're not telling you what to do, however, it never really pans out well when you pay. You inspire future attacks, and there's no guarantee that the information you're attempting to prevent from being disseminated will not make its way to the dark web anyway. For the folks, educators, superintendents, create a task force if you're attacked of the best talent across the globe. We did that without compensation in a non-conflicting way, and then establish a running committee of experts that meets in a privileged way to discuss the measures you've taken and the ongoing acquisitions that you're willing to make. And the last thing, force your boards to acknowledge this as a high priority and budget accordingly. We usually don't. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We'll now transition to our second panel, and I welcome those panelists to join us on stage. Thank you all very much for the superb panel. So we heard a great deal about proactive planning, resourcing, and quick action, and the role that plays in keeping schools safe. The attack on LA schools made it critical for us to address the gaps in resources, the gaps in people on a national scale that our K-12 schools need. The Biden-Harris administration is keenly focused on ensuring the support schools needed, the almost 14,000 school districts, can be better equipped to protect and defend students, teachers, and staff. So this next panel will focus on new efforts, new announcements from across the federal government that we're launching today to support schools across the United States in preventing, defending against, and responding to cyber attacks. So again, to lead things off, I asked Deputy Secretary of Education, Cindy Martin, to kick off the work the Department of Education is doing to keep kids safe.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'll join this panel too. I really appreciate hearing from our superintendent. Asking superintendents, school boards, school districts to go up against these bad actors is like giving them a plastic spoon and saying good luck. Like, they don't always have the knowledge base and the resources what to do, and so to be able to hear directly from Harvard case study examples, that what you called it? But pitch perfect, I think you called some of the responses we saw in LA. And I know you heard advice from Superintendent Carvalho about have it in your Rolodex, who to call. Maybe not everyone had my phone number. He happened to, because, you know, we're former superintendents together. But we're here for you. The Biden-Harris administration, this whole team is here for you, and that's why we wanted this panel to be here, so you could see what we're doing to put together in terms of a government coordinating council and the way we can all show up for you if the worst happens, but also before that happens, as Ann did during Secretary Mayorkas' opening, let off the applause about have a plan, be ready before something happens. It's really the best case. And I want to recognize the fact that Superintendent Carvalho did what I think the best leaders do. The best leaders not just have a plan and are prepared and respond during the moment and come up with something to do afterwards and put together the action plan and the task force. He did one more thing that he's not going to share himself. He sat up here to share lessons learned with everybody else, and the best leaders do that. You take what you've been through, and like good teachers, you teach others. And so that's what we're doing in terms of putting together from the Department of Education our response to be able to support the field, small, rural, urban, tribal, all across the country. Everybody needs support. And we can take the lessons learned from one of the largest districts in the country and apply it to the smallest, the most urban, the most rural, all across the country. And that's really what we're here to do. Because if you look at the data, and we have specific numbers, the K6 is a nonprofit that tracks these kinds of incidents. From 2016 to 2022, K-12 public schools and districts experienced 1,619 that we know of cybersecurity-related incidents. This is not a small problem. This is not an isolated problem that happens sometimes. It's pervasive enough that action is necessary. And as Ann said in the beginning, it's the knowledge, it's the resources, and it's the people, levels of action to implement a real response here so that we can address ransomware attacks and keep our schools and our students safe from this. So a little later, you're going to get to hear from several states that we've learned from. We have some very innovative approaches out there of what it takes to build a really defensible and resilient digital infrastructure. If we know what to do and we know what works, let's give that knowledge to everybody so everybody can apply that. And when they do occur, if something like this happens, it will have little widespread or lasting impact, and it can be addressed expediently with the knowledge base that we have. So you're also going to get to hear from the CIO from San Diego, who I have to give a shout out from because that's my hometown. There he is over there, Terry. Yes, I was superintendent in San Diego Unified for 8 years and taught there for my whole career in San Diego before coming here. So you'll hear about the CIO, from the CIO in San Diego, about how the County Office of Education supports 42 school districts in the county, including, of course, San Diego Unified, my former district. And you'll hear real practical information on how that's being done at a school county level where there's 42 districts involved. But let's continue the conversation here. What are we doing to strengthen cybersecurity? What are the concrete, actionable deliverables that are out there for you to be able to take advantage of now? You already know, hopefully, especially since we started yesterday and then continued to today. But the department released, in partnership with CISA, the Defensible Resilient K-12 Digital Infrastructure Brief. And in that, we're highlighting the cybersecurity recommendations and also all of the promising practice that we know exists out there that we've learned from states, from counties, from districts, from leaders across the country. We put it in one place for you. One-stop shop, one place to go. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's what we know today, and if we know it, we might as well share it. So as my friend already mentioned, the single most important thing that you can do is to prepare. And if you can prepare and put together incident response plans, we do it all the time as teachers. We have fire drills, we have emergency drills, we need cyber drills. Plan for this. You know what to do, and if you don't, we'll help you, and you can put this plan in place. So have the cybersecurity fire drills, because, you know, cybersecurity threats can really feel kind of overwhelming, and given the limited resources that you all have. Like, what are we supposed to do to prepare? We have limited resources, and if we have funding, I want to pay for more support for third grade reading. I have to pay for a CISO now too. Like, how do I put this together in a way that you can use the resources that are there for you? We know that there are district technology leaders across the country that can use the brief that we're publishing today to prioritize what are the highest impact actions. If you have a list of things to do and you're not quite sure where to start, turn to the resources that we're providing to say, here are the top 3 things you can do now, you can do today, with the limited resources we know that you have. Believe me, I understand limited resources. I was a superintendent for 8 years, and every year for 8 years submitted a budget to my board that included cuts. Keeping my kids safe, making sure they were learning while cutting is the calculus superintendents are constantly having to do, and we believe the guidance we're putting out is helping and understanding the context in which our leaders are leading. And since vendors have an important role to play here in protecting our digital infrastructure, I know vendors should also follow all of the recommendations that you see in this guidance through brief, and districts should consider the vendors to do so too. And we want to see our vendors actually following the same guidance as well, because it can't just be up to the school districts and the procurement experts in districts to know how to buy the right thing. Vendors should be selling us the right things as well. And so our guidance addresses that as well. So that's the first thing in the brief. The second thing is the Department of Education is developing a government coordinating council. You heard Secretary Cardona mention it. He believes in intentional collaboration. This is real action, not just words around it. We're putting this into place. It's an opportunity to coordinate activities and policy and communication between federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial governments so that we can all work together in the kindergarten model of teamwork. We'll make the dream work on this one. We will work together to strengthen the cyber defenses of resilience for the K-12 schools. We can facilitate formal and ongoing collaboration. Stay in constant conversation. Don't just wait for the crisis to happen. Ongoing, formal, informal collaboration, kind of like a lot of you, I think, did last night at Old Ebbett. That's another story. That's the informal part of the coordinating council. Glad to hear you all had fun there, though. I appreciate that. I got an update about that. This is our department's strategy, having this government coordinating council to work together to protect the schools and the districts that we care so much about from these cybersecurity threats. The threats are not going to stop, but we know what to do, and it's up to us to prepare ourselves, support districts to prepare for this, to respond to and to recover from cybersecurity attacks. So as educators, we lead in our ability to collaborate. This is what we do best. We want to keep doing it. We want to break down the silos. And I personally, being new to Washington, D.C., am very grateful to see our government in action and to see our president and first lady, along with the secretaries across agencies, the National Security Council, all of my friends across CISO, FBI, you all came to help and to support with real action and real support. So on behalf of all the nation's schools, we thank you for the collaboration, and from the Department of Education, we are here to provide real, meaningful, timely resources for you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. So turning now to the FCC, the chairwoman of the FCC couldn't join us once the event was rescheduled, so honored to introduce Ramesh Nagarajan, Chief Legal Advisor to the chairwoman, to announce some important FCC commitments in this space.
Yes, thank you. And yes, as you said, unfortunately with the schedule change, the chairwoman couldn't make it today. She was on a flight this morning to visit NASA in Florida. So you might be wondering why the FCC is here at this White House discussion on school safety and cybersecurity. Well, as many of you know, it's because the FCC runs the longest standing ed tech program in the country. To understand how that came to be, let's go back to 1996. That's when I tied up my parents' phone line by spending all day connecting to AOL. Maybe you did too. But back in '96, Congress had the foresight to task the FCC with developing what became known as the E-rate program. E-rate was visionary because Congress saw clearly, back in '96, that it would be a good idea to bring high-speed internet service to every school and library in this country. In the years since, this program's been a quiet powerhouse. It's supported broadband in schools and libraries across urban America, rural America, and everything in between. And because great programs don't thrive without continuous attention and care, the FCC has improved this program from low-speed to high-speed connections and from wired connections to wireless connections and Wi-Fi connections. While the E-rate program has been focused on supporting basic connectivity, we've heard loud and clear from stakeholders that cybersecurity is an increasing concern. That's because schools, as we've heard today, are becoming a prime target for cyber attacks. And perhaps most concerning is the rush of ransomware attacks on schools, including in districts like Los Angeles, like Superintendent Carvalho told us today, as well as in Baltimore, Miami-Dade, Minneapolis, and over 1,600 districts across the country. This is a problem just too big and too complex for any one agency to handle alone. It requires a whole-of-government approach, like the First Lady told us today. So here's what we're doing at the FCC to support that whole-of-government approach. The chairwoman has proposed to her colleagues that the FCC establish a pilot program to support cybersecurity services for K-12 schools and libraries. This pilot program would run for 3 years with a budget of $200 million. This pilot program will help provide all of us here today with valuable insights about how to leverage government resources to address the cybersecurity threats that schools and libraries face. A central theme that we plan on exploring in the pilot program is how to complement the work of our partners at CISA and the Department of Education with greater experience and more programs in this area. We also look forward to incorporating the recommendations in the joint brief that was just mentioned into our pilot program and seeing how we can fund those. At the FCC, we're proposing to establish a pilot program within the Universal Service Fund that's separate from the E-rate program. Based on the public record, we think this is the best way to make sure that gains in cybersecurity don't come at the cost of undermining E-rate's success in promoting digital equity and basic connectivity. Ultimately, our goal here is to learn from this effort, identify how to get the balance right, and provide our federal, state, and local government partners, including all of you gathered here today, with actionable data about the most effective and coordinated way to address this growing problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramesh, for this meaningful commitment from the FCC to really help schools. So now to close out our panel, I'd like to turn it again to the Director of CISA, Jen Easterly.
Great, thanks so much, Ann. You know, I know most people in this room probably know what CISA is, what we do, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. We love security so much we needed it twice in our name. That wasn't my doing. But we are the newest agency in the federal government, so just about 5 years old this November. But we're not a regulator. We don't collect intel. We're not law enforcement. We're not military. We are entirely a voluntary agency who works every single day to build trusted partnerships. And it's why we spend so much time and why we've built our field presence working with our partners at state and local, working with our federal partners, working with our industry partners to ensure that we are always adding value, that we're being transparent, that we're being responsive. And so the first thing that I'd mention is as we talk about what we're doing, please continue to give us feedback.
是什么淋湿了我的眼睛
Ask for everybody because this is something that we absolutely have to do as a team. Just a couple things. You know, a lot of this comes down to resources, and so we just announced that second tranche of our state and local bill, $75 million. Take a good look. Work with your CIOs who manage that, and if you have any questions at all, we have our regional field personnel who are in every state. You can reach out to them. We actually just put something up on our webpage, cisa.gov, that points you to all of these resources. As I mentioned earlier, the toolkit that we developed that was really sparked by the LAUSD incident, we've been working with schools, engaging to ensure that you all understand the simple steps that can be taken to help drive down risk. Of course, my favorite is enabling multi-factor authentication, but this is a very sophisticated audience, so I'm sure you all already have that done. Cindy mentioned the terrific collaboration on digital and resilient infrastructure. Shout out to you, my friend, of course, and Mike Klein and Elena Clark on my team who did amazing work on this. One of the things that we worked hard to do was to align the recommendations in the brief with our cybersecurity performance goals, which we created actually at the idea of Ann Neuberger to help simplify what schools and what entities can do in terms of limited resources. So we're very excited about getting that out there. Resources also include our all of the resources of the federal government. So if you haven't seen that, please take a look at it. It talks about what to do beforehand, what to do if you've been attacked, and then how to rebuild afterwards. One of the other things that we've done is our pre-ransomware notification There's something you can do to prevent having the worst day possible. So if you get a call from somebody in CISA, please pick up the phone. We find very creative ways to find you if you don't pick up the phone, though. We've done this over 600 times, and we've done it to 48 K-12 schools and school districts. So we really are out there putting a lot of resources against this. A couple other things, very exciting. We're doing our second annual National Summit on K-12 school safety coming up in November, so please check us out for that. We just released yesterday acquisition planning guidance. What you should be posting in your by design, my second favorite topic, which is really about shifting the comes out of the box. And then last, in the coming year, we are going to ramp up our engagements with schools and school districts, at least 300 prioritize what you need to do, and then we stick with you as you look to implement it. So look for that. We're also doing exercises. You heard a lot about the virtue of exercises, how important that is. It's the safety, it's the fire drill of cyber. So we're going to do more of those. We're trying to do 12 in the coming year, one a month. You know, at the end of the day, this is all about building resilience. And we know that that's hard work, but we have your back. We're here with you, with the federal government. Feed me lies and we'll find the truth. Our work together. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Feel the light on the pain, it's the sky will make you ready.
Thank you all for your fantastic announcements of government commitments in states and for your own personal leadership driving those commitments. So I'll now invite our next panel to join us on stage. As we've heard quite a bit, we can do more to prevent cyber attacks in the first place, starting with the security of systems and software. As our education system has increased, private sector edtech providers play a more important role in ensuring a safe education. So in the next time, we'll turn to these companies to have exciting announcements that will I'll start with James Vice President of Global Education and U.S. State and Local Government at Amazon Web Services.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today and discuss how the tech industry, education sector, and government could come together and collaborate to support the K-12 community as we continue to address these cyber risks and threats. But first, I'd like to thank the First Lady, Dr. Joe Biden, Dr. Miguel Cardona, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mahar. Assistance to make this event happen is appreciated and very excited to be a part of it. When you look at a recent study, global study in 2023, 80% of K-12 had and most important, the impact of lawsuit construction at NASDAQ. To prevent these critical issues and educational institutions themselves, we understand it must be a collaborative approach for all of us. And AWS knows that innovation is going to continue to drive and address some of these efforts. We're in constant collaboration with each one of the institutions. So we are excited to be a part of to help them aim at to focus on what they need to do, and that is to provide learning platforms K through 12. To support new and existing customers to establish their K through 12 security posture. Upskilling and reskilling of K through 12 resources is so important. Giving them the tools necessary. We're excited to provide AWS Skill Builder, which has custom content to support their understanding of how cyber produces environment. So we have to upskill these. We will offer the during, so we hear about during. We will offer incident response team support if you are frequently experiencing a we have resources that can also support you to ensure that you're able to secure your environment and protect your information. And lastly, EdTechs. We are partnered with many EdTechs, some here as well today. We will offer free, well-architected framework security reviews to ensure that they are secure as they supply mission-critical applications to the schools themselves. We're honored and we're so excited to participate in the Return Back to School Safety Initiative. We're here to support, but most importantly, we continue to strive to enhance all of our infrastructure and services to ensure that our customers and partners benefit from our standards and our security. I look forward to watching the consumption of opportunity to learn and be curious about how we can support and how they can secure their environment.
Show your magical power.
Thank you very much. I want you to look at that that tie to Deputy Secretary Martin's comments earlier. The security of the software schools buy is tied to the security they demand. They're buying software. Demand that it security. And I think the Department of Education and CISA are jointly sharing procurement guidance as well. So that's a request for schools to use the power of the purse. The federal government has done so as well, and President Biden's executive order to say we have to request and show what matters when we're buying tech. So you made the point very much, Kim. So that is the first. And then the second, I would say, is added resources during an incident are something to lean on, both the FBI's, private sector resources, because in many cases, there's the speed of recovery is how many hands can get on deck. So with that, I'd like to turn to Zaid Saeed, Head of U.S. Public Policy at Cloudflare.
Thank you, Deputy National Advisor Newberger. Thank you to Dr. Biden for hosting us. Thank you to Secretary Mayorkas and Secretary Cardona and all of their staff who've been working to put this together and to pull it together a second time today. Cloudflare is a security, performance, and reliability company helping to build a better internet. And today we're announcing Project CyberSafe Schools to help secure some of our nation's most important and vulnerable groups. Through this new initiative, Cloudflare commits to helping support eligible K-12 public school districts by providing email security and DNS filtering for faster, safer internet browsing. I'm here today with my colleague, Matt Schneider, who's head of public sector sales, and his team will be integral to helping for this new initiative. Project CyberSafe Schools will provide K-12 public school districts in the United States that have up to 2,500 students access to a package of zero trust cybersecurity services for free with no time limit. There's no catch and no underlying obligations. So that is 9,000 school districts out of 13,000 school districts in the United States have fewer than 2,500 students. We've already gotten our first inquiry as we were sitting here from a small school district in Minnesota with 700 students to apply for our services, so we'll be contacting them to get them going. Eligible organizations will benefit from email protection, which safeguards inboxes and cloud email security by protecting against a broad spectrum of threats like phishing and unintentional leaks of sensitive data. And second, DNS filtering, which protects against internet threats by preventing users from reaching unwanted or harmful online content like ransomware or phishing sites.
Blame it on the DJ!
Schools face cyber attacks that can slow internet access, threaten leaks of confidential student data, and hinder their ability to teach students in a secure and online space. As another school year is set to begin, we are committed to helping our nation's schools better protect themselves so they can focus on what they do best, teaching children. We launched the Project CyberSafe Schools website yesterday and published a blog piece today which gives more details about the program. And if you think your school district is eligible, you can go to the website, which is kind of a mouthful, www.cloudflare.com/cybersafe-schools.
Tracking your location, analyzing biometrics, blending materials, customizing your experience. Welcome to Liquid Lab. Waited so long, though you never call. You prove me wrong, 'cause out of nowhere it felt so right. If I could go back in time, what I would do is love you sooner. So can you kiss me like you're dying of thirst in my water? So can you kiss me like my lips help you breathe underwater? 'Cause I'm so bad I want you.
Songs that we sang when you were with me. Dream of better and gold. My heart's already been.
The house, the pressure, the house, pressure, the house.
So thank you for that. It's a real honor. Now, one of the things I think a lot of people don't know about
No, I don't have time. Take a hit. Come on over tonight. Take a hit. You can follow my bloodstream wild. No, I don't have time. Leave my mind picking on top.
about Power School.
Hold your love, start to shake.
We actually touched one of our solutions.
And then
3% of the North American 90 of the top 100, many are represented here, as well as 25 Department of Education. What's exciting about is that we really take security as one of our top priorities with very dedicated investment. And in fact, I'll just give you the magnitude of this. We, in last year, successfully defended against 1 billion cyber attack events just on our services with our customers. Security threat. Districts have dozens, if not hundreds, of different systems, some legacy, manual processes,
every one of those integrations and touch points create vulnerabilities and risks which our districts don't have the resources to manage all those exponential risks. Well, at PowerSchool, we help a lot of districts with their transformation of their digital cloud, so we can really help them with automation and getting into adoption of technology. But we also make sure that they are getting the best cybersecurity infrastructure. We do that by relentless investment and focus. Subsidized security as a service that we can reach any customer irrespective of whether they use PowerSchool solution or not. So offering courses, tools, assessments, as well as training and education thanks to support by AWS as well as No4B and other providers who are actually partnering with us to make sure that we can create a human firewall that allows our districts and students to be protected against all the different malicious attacks. We know there's a lot of work ahead of us, but we also have a huge opportunity to empowering teachers, bringing technology to make sure that we can support every child with the best education they deserve. But that starts with the foundation of data privacy and data security. And we're really excited about partnering with this community on our mission to make sure that we can support personalized education for every student journey. So thank you again for giving us this opportunity.
Let's go. Dance with me. Talk to me. Stop. Bring the beat back.
Learning how focused on the part of learning that happens in schools and universities. In Google for Education, we have created a platform that consists of
Tracking your location. Analyzing biometrics, blending materials, customizing your experience.
Third device in K through 12 globally. They're the #1 device, both here in the US and around the world, with over 50 million users. Now, core tenets of how we design these products are user privacy, a topic that's come up today, and security. We strongly believe and ensure that user data, student data, school data stays where it belongs, which is at the school. Nobody else has access to it, not any other companies, and certainly not Google. Now, to put a fine point on security, it's worth noting that there's never been a reported ransomware attack on a Chromebook or any device running Chrome operating system. And we don't believe this is an accident. This is because Google applies the principle of secure by design to Chromebooks. And this is the result. Now, the infrastructure that Google for Education runs on is the very same infrastructure that the products you know so well, such as Google Search, Google Maps, YouTube, run on. And this is the infrastructure trusted by none other than the US Department of Defense and many others. Now, our news today is we published, well, it was actually yesterday, so a caveat, a cybersecurity handbook. And the purpose of the cybersecurity handbook is an easy-to-use, practical, actionable set of steps that schools can take to harden their security posture, to have better defense. I'm really excited about it. It brings the best of Google's expertise into the hands of school administrators. Now, this is in conjunction with the work we're doing and the investment we're making in training. So recently, Google.org announced a $20 million investment as part of the Consortium for Cybersecurity to help train university students at 20 universities across the country so they can go out into their communities and help harden local infrastructure with improved security procedures. So in close, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you again to the administration for bringing this forum together, to making these actionable steps available to schools. You know, when we read the digital infrastructure brief, to check the language, what it was called, published yesterday, the words that jumped out at us were defensible, resilient, and secure by design. This is entirely consistent with Google's philosophy of how we do security. And we want to give teachers the confidence, as the First Lady talked about, to be able to walk into the classroom and teach with confidence using technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And finally, I'll turn it over to John Baker, CEO of D2L.
Thank you very much, Anne. I want to start by thanking the First Lady for her incredible passion and energy and care for this very important topic, and for all the leaders that are in this room for convening us to get us together to have this discussion and to put us on a different path for the future. So I started my company D2L in my third year of university because I was wrestling with one key question. What's the most important problem that I could solve that would have the biggest impact on the world? And I thought of it then, and I still think there's nothing more important today, which is there's nothing more important than helping to transform the way the world learns. Because learning, as many people know, ripples from one person to the next, through our schools, communities, countries,
but I just want to talk to you out here.
Challenges that we all face today.
Can you open the door and come outside?
To build a learning platform that could break down barriers that get in the way of high-quality education experiences, and to engage and inspire people to achieve more than they ever even dreamed possible.
We just want to help you, Rachel. If you can answer the phone or open the door and come outside.
You know, we've worked very closely with customers.
Hey, Rachel.
To implement authorization.
I just want you to come outside so we can talk.
And other layers of protection. So we've led an industry that is seeing numerous risks.
Listen, I know you got a job at TJ Maxx. I know you want to see Paisley.
But this also does not stop. This work is ongoing. That's why we're all
What
here.
can I do to help you, Rachel?
The security imperative, and to protect our students, our children, our educators, and our schools with this important initiative. We're committed to this ongoing work with our customers and partners, and continuously improving
I just want to help
our
you,
security,
Rachel.
knowing that there are always new challenges and threats ahead.
Yeah, I do. How can I help you? Tell me what can I do?
That are aligned to this particular initiative.
I want what?
You know, today we have over 1,800 technologies.
Yes,
that
I
are
just
being
want you to
developed.
come
What we're doing is we're now extending.
We're right out here, Rachel. Hey, Rachel. Drop the knife, please.
No.
Rachel. Drop the knife, please. Drop the knife.
We also recognize.
Put the knife down, Rachel.
Rachel,
drop the knife. Drop the knife, Rachel.
You're leading security experts on services for our schools. We're also going to be developing different programs. And many
Rachel.
of our already use our learning platform to deliver training to their staff. So this would be a great way for them to extend the development of these critical cyber skills for their employees and for their students. And as part of that, we want to launch a new user group to bring together peers to talk through the issues, to share knowledge, to share
Can't come outside of the light.
Rachel, stop, Rachel, stop.
continue to expand or work with audited third parties to validate our software.
All right, headquarters, we got one female now. I need OSD.
Doing our best to incorporate
Can't come outside of the light.
Rachel,
Stop, Rachel, stop.
secure by design, private by design.
All right, headquarters, we got one female now. I need OSD.
All of our business. We're pleased to
Rachel, put down that other knife.
here today by the United States federal government.
She has a knife in her left hand.
drop the knife, Rachel. Please, drop the knife. Rachel,
To protect our customers.
drop the knife.
She has a knife in her left
Rachel,
hand.
has a knife.
Rachel, let
please.
go of the knife. We're gonna get help for you, Rachel.
Drop the knife, Rachel. I want to help you.
Rachel, put the knife down, please. Yes, in her left hand.
Thank you to each of you.
Rachel, please drop the knife. Hey,
Oh, back up.
Go. Drop this way.
Crossfire.
Rachel, drop the knife, please. We want to help you. Let us help you.
So it is my hope that
Rachel, drop the knife, please.
Drop it so we can help you. We want to come help you.
and private sector to strengthen schools' defenses and resilience in the face of cyber attacks.
Get in. Rachel, please drop the
Stay
knife.
inside. Stay inside.
Go inside. Close the
Get in the
door.
apartment.
West Virginia, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Michigan were all victims of major cyber attacks. And while we
Rachel, drop that knife, please.
Let it go. Let go
Let
of
us
the
help.
knife.
partners
All
are
right,
certainly
hey,
essential.
figure out to come in with this baton and knock that out of her hand.
Lessons from folks on the ground, folks battling cyber attacks from those who are vulnerable. So with that, I'd like to turn it to the final panel of today.
Because we're gonna have to get that before OSD comes in.
Particularly innovative and inspiring.
Well, Rachel, drop the knife, please.
She still has a knife in her hand. It's still holding it.
Yep.
So first, I'd like to introduce Vanessa.
Rachel, if you can hear me, just drop the knife out of your palm.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here today.
Stay inside. Close the door.
Approach to protecting our students'
See,
well-being, with sensitive data, and certainly
She's still holding one knife. We're trying to get that out of her hand now. Just have OSD come up to the front building and stage.
What are you going to do? Okay. Wait. Who's covered?
Just, I got it.
You're covered?
Yep.
Who's grabbing the knife? Ready?
Go.
Grab the knife.
Scene secure. OSD can come in.
I don't have any more gloves. Drop the knife.
Let me give her first aid.
Guys, Eric, put
Let me give her first aid.
gloves.
Huh?
Put your weapon down. And hold it. That's it. Come on.
we've done two
Any more
campaigns
emergencies?
in our state to combat this. North Carolina has created the Joint Cybersecurity Task Force.
Stay
Stay back inside,
inside.
please. Stay inside.
Rolodex
Close the door.
is our Rolodex. The Joint Cybersecurity Task Force is connected
Rachel,
with our federal
talk to
partners.
me.
You guys feel any vitals?
Look at me.
Can often be on the ground within hours. So I'll go a little bit more about that in just a second, but it was a two-pronged approach. We've also created the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's K-12 cybersecurity program. So the JCTF consists of the North Carolina Emergency Management, Department of Information Technology, the National Guard, the Local Government Information Systems Strike Team, and certainly there are seats on there for our FBI and our Secret Service when needed. So we're dialed immediately up to all the federal support available to us. The JCTF provides instant response and recovery to all of our schools if needed, and it's important to note, if an incident happens in any one of the North Carolina 2,780 schools, they are required to report that incident to me and to our centralized IT, and we're also legislatively prohibited from paying any type of ransomware. So we too do not negotiate with terrorists. So the JCTF is really critical, and one of the things we've done is to make sure everyone's aware that it's there, and we mobilize immediately when needed. The second part of this is the DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, cybersecurity program. We're providing governance, resources, and actually managed solutions to reach the goal of prevention and hardening our posture. We created an office in our agency just to have regional support. We just rolled out a very robust data exchange agreement because we found that when we do have an incident, it is coming from third parties. So a key component to that has been training all of our technology leaders who lead our schools, training our teachers. Our teachers have accessed over 325,000 training and phishing simulations in the last 2 years. We are essentially acting as the SOC, the Security Operations Center for our schools, because we have provided so many managed services. Some of those include advanced endpoint protection, network asset discovery, next-gen firewall. That next-gen firewall is blocking about 100,000 attempts every rolling 7-day average. So we're also doing malware filtering and advanced solutions. So safe, successful, and happy, those are the desires of every parent for our children. So we've taken those core tenets and we've used those things to make sure we have built out a program that can be the key to success, which is trifold, and we've heard it here today: funding, partnerships, and resources. Thank you so much for allowing me to share with you today. I'm very honored to do this.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. I'll now turn to Michael Gregg, the CISO for North Dakota's IT.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone for having me here today. I just wanted to start off by saying North Dakota's taken a little bit of a different approach to cybersecurity. As you can probably guess, it's sometimes hard for us to find talent and find the people we need. My team overall protects about 250,000 endpoints on any one given day, and we do it on about half the staff of a Fortune 30 company. Now, it's not always easy, as I said, to recruit and train these individuals, so we've taken a very strong role on education and training. And that really starts with the state. Under our governor's leadership, we've passed the first in the nation cyber education bill. That's 1398. Under that bill, that requires cyber education is taught in every grade of K-12. But it doesn't end there. When we get to junior high and high school, we have our Cyber Madness competition. This yearly Capture the Flag event allows us to have students work together as teams and use real-world tools and techniques to solve cyber challenges. The winners are awarded scholarships, which helps them pay for their college education. And I can tell you, one of the things I will never forget this last year was parents coming to me at the conclusion of the Cyber Madness event and telling me that their child, their daughter, getting that money and that scholarship made the difference in them being able to send their daughter to school and her continue her college education. We've also aligned with our state universities and colleges, and our tribal colleges really play a key part there. So Turtle Mountain and others are actively engaged in this and work toward that. Now, North Dakota cyber programs don't end there, and our education programs don't end there. We actively recruit and we actively hire interns and apprenticeships. My team brought on the first cyber apprentice in the state of North Dakota, and now the House and the Senate has approved multiple more that will be hired and will be staffed throughout the state. We continue that when I bring people on. When I bring them on, we have a motto called Sharpen the Saw. That means we continue to learn and grow throughout. Part of that is our joint state cyber operations that we've formed. So we get together with other states. We've done a state exercise now for 2 years in a row. And for the second year, we brought together more than 12 states, 60 individuals from throughout those states to talk about what they would do in a major cyber incident and how they would respond, so how we would work together. Overall, these programs have provided great benefit to the state, help us grow our education throughout the state, and it really doesn't end there. Just a few months ago, my team was the only state team to make it in America's Cyber Cup Challenge. So out of 100 teams, my team was the only state team to actually make it. And out of that, my team for the first year that we've done this, we finished second place, beating many other well-known private industry teams. You'd think my team would be happy there, but they told me immediately afterwards, don't worry, next year we're taking #1. So I'd just like to close and thank everyone for the opportunity to be here today and to talk a little bit about what North Dakota is doing with cyber education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'll now turn to Terry Liftus, the Assistant Superintendent and CIO of San Diego.
I'm going to go ahead and start with a quote from the CISA website. There is no more important institution to the future prosperity and strength of the United States than our own nation's K-12 education system. And I think everybody in this room believes that. Again, I'll say good afternoon. I guess technically we've traversed into afternoon. My name is Terry Loftus. I have the privilege and honor of serving the 550,000 students and staff of San Diego County, including our largest school district, San Diego Unified, an innovative district previously expertly led by our Deputy Secretary. And officials in this room today have really talked about and articulated some of the impacts of cybersecurity incidents, and I would share another word of caution as we go forward. The K-12 sector is far from having a clear understanding of the breadth and depth of the risk landscape. For example, California has over 1,000 school districts serving nearly 6 million students, the vast majority of which have never had a comprehensive vulnerability assessment. The reality is most K-12 institutions simply don't know that they've had an incident unless it's made visible by the threat actor, such as in the event of a ransomware demand. To start, it's important that our institutions adopt a strategy and a framework to evaluate and address cyber risks. My colleague David Thurston and I have championed the adoption of CIS controls framework at California's 58 county offices of education, and in turn our county offices are now working with our schools, school districts, and charter schools to implement those controls as well. Highlighting CIS, MSISAC, and CISA for a moment, these organizations represent increasingly important partners to the K-12 community. Individuals like Director Easterly has been key in helping raise awareness about the profound impact of attacks on K-12 education. I'd also like to share some bright spots, though, with everybody today, because an asset-based mindset is important for our students and also for all of us in this room. In San Diego, we're providing insights via vulnerability assessments and follow-up support at little or no cost to our LEAs. We're helping K-12 districts to enroll in programs like MSISAC for free, my favorite F word, and assisting in the implementation of the CIS controls as mentioned earlier. California K-12 school districts have also faced a surge of DDoS attacks in recent years. Thankfully, a partnership between the County Offices of Education, the CDE, and CENIC, the Statewide Research and Education Network, have built out a DDoS mitigation service that is now available and lit up for every single educational agency in the state free of charge. In recent years, my SDCWE Cyber Guardians teams has also delivered a number of statewide trainings and resources on controls such as MFA. We have a current goal, a SMART goal, to implement MFA at all of our county offices of education by the end of this year, which we're excited about. My SDCWE team has also designed and developed a phishing awareness, training, and testing platform called Red Herring that in the last 2 years we've had over 200 school districts, county offices, and charter schools implement this platform. So today we've got over 221,000 educators, teachers, administrators of all types that are leveraging this platform to reduce the risk of phishing attacks, which is still our #1 attack vector. At SDCWE, we're in the initial stages of building a new K-12 Cyber Operations Center in San Diego, and I have more examples, but I must be transparent in noting that the work happening in San Diego is not the norm. I'm very, very thankful to have a superintendent and a board of education that's allocating the funding for these initiatives. In fact, I would say this is a call to all administrators out there, superintendents, boards, and otherwise, as mentioned earlier, that we need to make this a priority. The way forward, in my mind, is clear. K-12 must continue to innovate and evolve best practices, and we must build more robust and purposeful partnerships between K-12 entities, the U.S. Department of Education, and our federal and state partners. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Terry. I'd now like to turn it over to Doug Case, the Executive Director of the Connecticut Commission for Education Technology.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Advisor, and really commend Dr. Biden, Secretary Cardona, who we miss in Connecticut, by the way, and Secretary Mayorkas and the broader community here. I'm Doug Casey. I serve with the Department of Administrative Services directly as the Executive Director for our Commission for Educational Technology. Our interagency commission was created 25 years ago with the simple mission of making sure that technology was equitably available for teaching and learning at the K-12, higher education, and library levels. And one of the first things that we did was to establish a research and education network similar to the one that Terry just mentioned, that provides high-speed, symmetrical multi-gigabit connections to every single school, every university, every state agency, and soon to be every single library. And so taking that continuum of education view of cybersecurity is really important. In addition to believing that equity of speed is important, we also believe that a secure connection is a matter of equity. And so for those reasons, we've layered on cybersecurity protections in the form of content filtering to abate human engineering attacks as well as DDoS attacks, which if you're not familiar with those, read about them in the papers. They essentially would shut down a network for days, if not weeks. And shutting those off has been a huge benefit to our schools and universities. Another thing that we've done in Connecticut that I would encourage you to look into is apprenticeship programs, training up the next generation of cybersecurity experts. In addition to the skills, in addition to the micro-credentials, we really put a focus through programs like our Cyber Hub onto the importance of mentorships and partnerships.
Tracking your location, analyzing biometrics, blending materials, customizing your experience. Welcome to Liquid Lab.
I started my career 25 years ago in the chemistry classroom. Don't line up for that. I know that I can do some tutoring afterwards. Left that career to enter into educational technology, and from the very beginning, the digital divide existed. Then we called it the homework divide. Students going home and not having the access. Today, we have a security divide. Coming from that intermediate unit perspective, where I serve 25 school districts.
Tracking your location, analyzing biometrics, blending materials, customizing your experience. Welcome to Liquid Lab.
I fall in love, I usually take my time, hoping it gets better. Swipe left, swipe right.
Say that our partners, our private sector partners, are just as much customers as our school districts, because they want to succeed as much as we want them to succeed in the K-12 footprint. And so we help to bring those two together. Using a shameless chemistry kind of analogy, we see ourselves as intermediate units as the great emulsifier between the K-12 public schools, you like that, didn't you, and the private sector. And so through those partnerships, we brought consortia for MFA. We've brought consortia for fishing education for our teachers and our administrators to make sure they understand what they're even doing. Oftentimes, they don't even know when they're selecting those links or clicking on or filling in information. Most recently, we've partnered with K-12-6. Doug's in the crowd here, and I cannot hesitate to give a shout out. We ran a 2-day workshop. We were able to stream that live to about a dozen other intermediate units across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, covering almost half of the LEAs in Pennsylvania. 2-day workshop building an incident response plan and going through an actual run book where participants were able to actually exercise their plan and see if it actually would work. And so actual practical application for those individuals, bringing them out. I can't tell you how often they thank us for the things that they don't often get the privilege of being able to go on site and be able to take part of that type of collegiality with their peers. And that's what we need to be doing more often. So the Education Service Agency model in partnership with MSISAC and CISA has been instrumental in making that be a success. So thank you to First Lady, thank you Ann for bringing us here, and the secretaries. It has been an honor and privilege to be here today. Thank you.
So thank you all for the valuable insights you shared. And I think to summarize the time we spent together this morning, we heard that protecting schools and kids needs 3 things. Knowledge. And you heard from skilled, experienced individuals like the LA United superintendent who led both prevention and led incident response to a significant incident. Resources, both funds and people, and you heard about new commitments from both government and the private sector. And a thank you to the leaders who made those commitments happen. And we brought together people who do the work each day, skilled educators and administrators, and of course, representing the commitment, a teacher herself, the First Lady, and 2 secretaries, Secretary of Education, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, because fundamentally that partnership between educators and security experts is what will keep our schools and our kids safe. So we're excited. Today is just the beginning. And we're excited both for those who joined us here today, those watching online, to tap into these resources to help schools be safe. So before closing, I want to take a moment to thank the individuals who made today's event happen, who are so committed to school safety. First, from the Office of the First Lady, Mala Adiga, DJ Sigworth, and Emma Stopek. From the White House Social Office, Liz Hart. From the NSC, Caitlin Clark, John Murphy, Caroline Pestel, and Michael Tam. And from the Department of Education, Mike Klein, Christina Ishmael, and Ramon Carranza, Jr. We hope that gathering here today will serve as a catalyst to help ensure that schools tap into the resources we talked about and ensure that our kids can go back to school safely. Thank you all for joining us today.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Arati Prabhakar. I'm one of the co-chairs of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, and I'm really happy to be here with my co-chairs, Maria Zuber and Francis Arnold, and our wonderful group of PCAST members. And warm welcome to everyone who's joining us from the broader public as well. One thing I want to note before we dive in is that the next meeting that's in September will be in person in Washington, and I'm always happy to see the tile of faces, but it's always much better when we're together, so we're very much looking forward to that. I want to remind everyone that this meeting is public, it's being recorded, and this recording of the meeting will be available on the PCAST website for anyone who misses the live stream and wants to see it. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Maria to moderate this first session about a PCAST letter to the President.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Arti, and let me also extend my welcome to PCAST members and the public. We're going to talk about science engagement here today. Science communication plays a crucial role in today's world as scientific advancements and discoveries are constantly shaping our lives and the future of our society. Effective science engagement involves conveying complex or unfamiliar concepts in an understandable manner to audiences that include policymakers, the general public, and other stakeholders. For example, accurate and up-to-date information forms a critical contribution to decision-making in areas such as public health and safety, environmental regulation, semiconductors, AI, you name it. Conveying scientific concepts clearly and transparently builds public trust and facilitates adoption of science-based outcomes that could improve or even save lives. For all these reasons, the topic of science communication is of great interest among the members of PCAST. So now I'd like to introduce PCAST members Phil Venables, Vicky Sato, and Saul Perlmutter, who are the co-leads of our Science Communications Working Group, and they'll present the results of their deliberations and answer any questions from PCAST members. So Phil, Vicky, and Saul, take it away.
Thank you, Maria, and good morning to everyone. I'm Vicky Sato and one of the co-chairs of this working group on science engagement. I'm pleased to open the presentation on the proposal of the working group addressing the topic of advancing public engagement with the sciences. We look forward to your feedback. By way of reminder, I will say that PCAST reports require public discussion and voting by the entire council, with the opportunity for contributions from the public. Recommendations by PCAST reflect the independent judgment of the council and are not subject to any interagency review or approval. Next slide, please. The broad topic of effective public communication on matters in science and technology is of high interest across the council, and this is reflected in the composition of the working group. We have benefited from the contributions of members who span social sciences, life sciences, mathematics, physical sciences, academia, and the private sector. This diversity of expertise has enriched our discussions and analyses. Next slide. In addition, we have had the benefit of input from external experts in the field of science and community engagement, as well as the experience and perspectives of representatives from a number of government agencies. Next slide. As Maria mentioned in her opening remarks, our work centered around the fact that the innovation and progress driven by science and technology impact everyone. From climate science to medicines to space exploration to artificial intelligence, what scientists discover and invent touches all of our lives. But the language of science can be complex, and the evolving nature of science understanding is not static. How can we communicate more effectively with the public on matters of deep importance to individuals, families, and communities? Continue the slide, please. Happily, Americans have had a historical confidence that science and scientists will act in the public's best interests, and this has been reflected in polling of various kinds over the years. But there are stresses that put this historical confidence and trust at risk. The rapid information landscape, changing so fast, driven by modern technologies. The continuing legacies of social inequities and abuse, and an overall decline of trust in institutions put pressure, appropriately so, on the trust Americans have historically had in science and scientists. Americans want and deserve to have their values and priorities considered deeply in decisions that affect their lives. What can we do to create public
works for Germany's military has been arrested on suspicion of spying for Russia. The suspect is a German citizen and is accused of approaching the Russian embassy in Berlin and the Russian consulate in Bonn, offering his cooperation.
Dialogue between experts, communities, and government agencies that are responsible for research and development. This is not an easy task. Next slide. We spent quite a bit of time talking to stakeholders on this topic, and we learned critically that it is not enough to refine how we talk to the public. We can talk more, we can talk more loudly, we can talk with greater specificity and earnestness, but in fact, what we really need to do is more listening. And this is the message that we heard loudly across the demographics that we surveyed. We must create both opportunities for community dialogue and incorporate the fruit of that dialogue into policies that better incorporate the needs and values of the community. How do we do this? Next slide, please. Happily, we have found that over the past half-century, examples of community-informed science policy have been rich, informative, and constructive, and occasionally and enlighteningly contentious.
We're asking guys questions about their girlfriends, so here we go. When is her birthday?
July, 21st?
What we need now, we think, is to shine a brighter light on the importance of this kind of dialogue. Sorry? And we have chosen to advance our idea.
We are taking a really hard look at climate change and all the effects on our daily lives. And today we're not just talking about how it's impacting our environment, but it's also impacting our brains. We're talking about anxiety, various
conducted by the National Academy, by the CDC, by Health and Human Services, by the Office of Science and Technology Policy, that underpin the data that supports the idea that enhanced community engagement, skillfully and transparently done, can be an important force for improving our engagement, conveying science advancement, science change, and science challenges with the community. My colleague Saul Perlmutter will continue the presentation by describing our specific recommendations to the President. Saul, over to you.
Thank you, Vicki. Well, good morning, everybody. The first of the recommendations reflects a concern that we heard from multiple parties, and the recommendation is to issue a clarion call to federal agencies to make science and technology, communication, and public engagement a core component of their mission and strategy. The idea is that an essential pillar of this effort is ensuring that experts in participatory public engagement.
Hey, take a deep breath, buddy. Calm down, okay?
Level policy development and decision-making processes. If we heard that the elevation of that role in an agency made a very big difference. Next slide.
Start a car.
We also heard clearly that there is real expertise needed here. There has been real advances in understanding how to reach and work with communities and statistically representative
on August
publics,
the 5th, 2023,
and this expertise
at approximately
is even more necessary
1:11
in a federal
a.m.
government context with
officers
DACA
with the
and
Columbus
Paperwork
Division
Reduction
of
Act
Police
rules.
were dispatched to the intersection of South High Street and Rowe Road on a call from a passerby who described a male white wearing a blue shirt who appeared as if he was about to jump into
public
traffic.
engagement and effective science and technology communications. The thought is that this office should consist of individuals with a range of expertise who can partner with or be deployed to the agencies, including assistance in the use of social science-informed techniques for participatory engagement and cutting-edge digital technologies.
An officer arrived on scene and made contact with the man, who appeared to either be intoxicated or suffering from some form of mental illness. The officer attempted to talk to the man while he waited for backup. Unfortunately, the man, in possession of a broken glass bottle, charged at the officer, forcing the officer to discharge his firearm. The man, later identified as 27-year-old Zach Bryson, was pronounced dead shortly
If I
thereafter.
go to the next slide, please, I'll describe a little bit of some of the feedback.
9131 radio. I've got him at South High and Road. It's like,
We should say that we had a very
hello, sir. Columbus Police.
So not only for the content, but also very
I've got him at South High and Road.
letter format, as you may
Hey,
not be surprised to hear.
buddy, are you okay? Hey, walk over here towards me, okay? I don't want you to get struck or anything. Are you all right?
Changing the idea including the...
Why don't you walk over here and talk to me, buddy?
...in policy development and recommendation 1 to having...
Hey, everything all right, buddy?
But in the end, the extraordinary because we were hearing that this had not been enough in previous situations in the agency.
Start a squad this way for this guy, possible excited delirium. Hey, take a deep breath, buddy. Calm down, okay? Hey, friend, possibly 16B situation. Hey, start a car. It's getting combative. Calm down, pal. You hear me?
He's headed high and low, please. On a 6.
Hey, buddy. Take a deep breath. Calm down, okay? He's got a bottle or something in his hand, so he's trying to fight with me here. Hey, don't do it. No, I don't want to do that. I want to help you. No, I don't want to do that. So I want to help you, buddy.
But only if
no, I don't want to do that.
Understand that they own these tools as key participants in the decision-making process. So with these recommendations, we have the opportunity
Don't do that. Watch out. Move back.
Thank you. Back to Mary.
Great. Thank you very much, Vicki and Saul, for that very clear and concise presentation of the results.
Hey, watch out, buddy. Don't come close to me. Okay, move back. Well, nothing. I don't want anything to happen to you. I want to help you.
So critical in order for the public to really understand and communicate how it works.
Buddy, watch out. You're going to get run over. Get back, okay? Hey, do not run out there.
Collect any information or get input on the best way to structure.
Don't cut yourself, buddy.
The individuals who work in the within the agencies. Okay, so the difference between a city law office within an agency.
Hey, stop. Don't do it. Do not do it, okay?
Okay, well. Did you do any investigations?
Stop. Get back. Shots fired. Shots fired. Suspects down. Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. Put your hands out. Put your hands out.
Well, you might want to talk a little bit about the example.
Stay down. Don't move. Put your hands out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think, the reason we were kind of like the US Digital Service
Start a medic this way.
A set of expertise to be developed, but to Vicky and Saul's point in the slides, it doesn't supplant the needed expertise and capability in the agencies. So as the agencies grow and integrate this function across their various different teams, they can pull on this central service, and that's been the same case you've seen as agencies have expanded their technology and technology innovation using the digital service to do that. I think in terms of what we saw from some of the agencies, but also in some of the private sector organizations that we consulted with, one of the core elements of success in organizations that drive this type of communications is to have that central set of expertise, but also to have the leaders engaged in all of the parts of a department or agency's activities. And this comes back to the recommendation one about appropriately elevating the people to be connected to every activity as early on as possible. So it's that classic balance of central expertise and growing expertise, but being plugged in as early as possible into every activity to shape those activities to facilitate that communication.
Great. Thanks very much. Okay, the next question, we'll turn it over to our co-chair, Frances Arnold.
Thank you. And actually, that was a great question that was also on my mind. Do you envision that this new office would detail people to the agencies? And I find it very useful to have a concrete example. Could you give us an example of how a science communication, science engagement problem, actually what is an example of a problem and what is an example of the expertise that would be provided to the agencies? Presumably these are not scientists, and technologists, but experts in science communication, social science. So how would they work together?
Also a great question, and clearly there's not a lot of experience in this kind of organization, so we're proposing by analogy or homology, if you will. I think it's important that this office have the flexibility to be current, both with regard to their expertise in the rapidly changing field of digital technologies, but equally in the area of social sciences, which is changing rapidly. And the experiences there have been modern, current, and rich. And I think I'll ask Jen or Lisa Cooper, who were critical to our thinking in this area, to maybe comment on some of the examples in health and human services and in other areas where current practices and thinking in social sciences is shaping the way we interact with the public. Jen or Lisa?
Okay, I'm happy to chime in. I mean, one example that I can think of, and it's actually an example we gave in the Public Health Workforce Report, was the Community Engagement Alliance Against COVID-19. And so that's one of these sort of examples in which there's been expertise at the level of one of the federal agencies that's, leading this effort at NIH. And there's a broad representation of stakeholders within that partnership, but there's bi-directional communication at every level, and all of the findings that come out of the research program are communicated very rapidly to the public, but before that material is disseminated, there's a lot of input from the community partners, whether they be leaders of community-based organizations or the services, the clients they serve, into the format, into the presentation of the material, the messaging, the appropriateness of the language. There's a lot of input into that before any of the materials are generated and disseminated. And there's a lot of input into what are the appropriate vehicles to use for communication. So, but that whole process is an excellent model, because the partnership that is in place in this initiative really provides the ongoing engagement with people who are on, who have a voice and who have concerns related to the work that's being done. So that's one example where there's expertise there. There's an office there at the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute of Communication where there's a lot of expertise there, and we're thinking they could be a model that other agencies could tap into. They also have a consultation service that they've provided for their researchers, but there's no reason why other federal scientist groups couldn't tap into that as well.
Jen Richardson, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I would just add also, the broader community of social sciences, especially people with expertise in sampling, are required to actually know what different communities think about different emergent technologies. And so you also have a phase in all of these efforts for outreach to really get an accurate picture of what people in various communities think about the question, and that requires separate, expertise than some of the straight communications talent that we want to see.
Well, actually, let me follow up, Jen. So then would you envision that this office would have a staff of such experts that would be detailed to agencies upon request for a project? Is that
correct? And it might be in teams. So given what the actual question is or the problem is, the team would say, okay, this is what you need. First, you need someone to help you figure out what this community that you're interested in connecting to thinks about the question. We can help you develop a survey, deploy it, analyze it, give you the information. Then we can move forward with, okay, how do we, answer this call, broadly speaking? How do we help you message in a way that is effective? And of course, that's also something that should be tested, not based on intuition.
But aren't there other mechanisms by which you could engage the broader community of social scientists to get involved as well? Rather than have just a staff.
Probably not in this problem-focused way, right? This agency has this question or this set of problems, and we need someone to answer them, as opposed to what social scientists are doing in their own sort of basic research.
We could probably imagine that the experts would know how to, what outside contractors you hire to help build a representative sample for different purposes. So that would not be unusual, but I think it does take expertise even to know what it is you're asking for in that purpose.
Yeah, I think, when you look at other examples of this, the engagement can be a spectrum of things from, small consultation to seek advice through to full-scale deployment of detailees for extended periods to build a capability in an agency, and then everything on that spectrum in between.
And I think we heard some of this from the U.S. Digital Services Group, where there's a renewing roster of fellows, in that case with digital technological skills, and in our case, probably a broader band of skills. So the pool, if you will, of expertise renews, and it serves as a nexus for a broader community that's networked to experts across a variety of communication strategies, if you will.
We may also comment that we definitely heard very different needs from different agencies that are at different levels of advance in this area. And so some of them would be using certain aspects of this expertise. Others might be taking on a large amount of cross deployment because they would need further help getting themselves off the ground.
Great, thank you. Bill Press, you're up next.
Yeah, I think these are terrific ideas, and I think the need to both communicate better with the public and engage better with the public, these are not just in the category of good to do. These are essential to do if the American people are going to benefit from the whole scientific enterprise. At the same time, I think there might be people out there who wonder about what are the guardrails on this, because in past administrations, not all but some, there have been examples of political pressure to miscommunicate science, to engage with the public in sort of biased ways with a predetermined outcome. So I wonder if you thought about what these guardrails could be. I mean, for example, something that comes to my mind is that the head of this office could be a member of the SES, the Senior Executive Service, rather than a political appointee, something specific to make it a non-political office. My question is really, have you thought about that, and what do you think?
Saul, this has been a grounding concern and interest that Saul's been articulating to the group, that it's important that this capability, this attention to public engagement, and this office that we are proposing to be a nucleus for activity, be of a credibility and of a neutrality that can survive different administrations, and that its consistency of purpose and the reputation it needs to build for delivering truth in science, as complex as that may be, is an important part of sustainability. So it's a very good specific suggestion, but we haven't been so detailed in trying to highlight the phenotypes of the leadership here, but certainly continuity, credibility, transparency are going to be essential ingredients in any leadership role.
And maybe the one other thing to echo, Vicky, your earlier point from the slides, that very much of what we were trying to design was something that had a lot more capacity to listen as opposed to just speak. And we're hoping that that listening would be of value to all administrations, and that it would provide some longevity.
Thank you. Andre Goldsmith.
Thanks so much, and thanks to the committee for this excellent report and set of recommendations. My question is around the role of universities in partnering with federal agencies here. Are they part of the solution or part of the problem, or both, in terms of how to really engage the general public? And then also specifically, how do we engage some of the best science communicators, like people like Isaac Asimov or Stephen Hawkins, who really have engaged the public and their imagination around science? Thanks very much.
That's a great concept and a great question. I'll speak for myself as a member of this committee. I think universities are an important part of this ecosystem of communication. And I know many universities have established much more outward-facing science discussions, science presentations about discoveries within their institution, as well as on topics that are of interest to the general public, and feature speakers who are skilled and knowledgeable in presenting to the public in different fora. So I certainly see universities as an important part of this ecosystem, not just as a portal, but also as a place where the integrity of science and the responsibility of science to the public gets instilled, if you will, with the teaching. And I think, the current culture around Oppenheimer is an interesting example of this. So I appreciate the question, Andrea, and that's my own take, and I ask others on the working group to express their views as well.
We might want to mention that we're hearing that one of the whole points of the raising the level of the importance of this topic in the agencies was that the agencies wanted the permission to be able to perhaps have programs with universities and other grantees to accomplish some of these goals, but it had not been part of their mission previously in certain cases.
Also, not necessarily that the federal government has to take the lead on every single science communication issue. I think it's actually better to have a broad range of independent voices as well. So I think having lots of dialogue and forums, bringing academics and communications experts and federal agencies together is great, but we shouldn't sort of lean too heavily into trying to sort of dominate that kind of conversation.
Terrific point.
I think the other thing that's worth remembering is as individual agencies develop good and new practices for doing these types of engagements with universities or others, you can imagine the role of the central service team is to capture that, develop toolkits for that, and promulgate that out. So the other thing that we didn't, foot stomp on as much as we probably could have is the notion of that, this is again what the US Digital Service has done a lot of, which is amplifying individual agencies' best practice for the benefit of everybody else by encoding things as toolkits that people can use. And you can imagine this is another example of that. If there's a method of engaging universities, you can imagine that could be replicated quite easily using this central team.
We also heard, correct me if I'm wrong, we also heard from a couple of agencies that the grant issuing power inherent in some of these agencies with this kind of encouragement could lead to more research and innovation in the areas of more effective public engagement in the sciences. So that was another place where highlighting the importance of this activity provides the agencies with different kinds of opportunities for innovation, not just communication.
Okay. Next up, Paula Hammond.
Yes, thank you for a really critical report. I had a question that is really kind of the opposite scenario to Bill Press's question. I think listening is so important. What kinds of tools do you envision or approaches do you envision if upon listening it's found that there is a good deal of information that is not correct and is influencing how a community receives or understands science without losing trust? I'm wondering if this new agency would have special skill sets in this area, and if you had any thoughts in mind on how to address that.
I'd say that one of the aspects that we were particularly interested in here was the experience where, in similar situations, having a dialogue started first before the confrontation about what the fact set has made a big difference. And so the expectation is that that one of the reasons to do this kind of two-way engagements early is so that there's more of a conversation going where people might be able to change minds and listen to each other in that respect. And in particular, I think separating out a little bit of the values development and the goals and fears and of different communities early on, as before you also start discussing the constraints of what the science allows or doesn't allow. Also there's been evidence, I gather, that it makes a difference if that's on the table first before you then try to discuss what the constraints are, since otherwise people try to express their values and their goals and their fears using the science as the football.
Part of the task of science communication too is, and I think Joe Chiani commented on this in his comments on the report, is science evolves and it changes, and one makes recommendations based on the best information one hopes that one has at the time. But we don't always do a very good job of communicating that fluid nature of science, and the fact that different information, new data, can affect how we think and how we act. So the devil will be in the details, of course, but having people in this group and having leaders of this group who are skilled and balanced in hearing the concerns and being able to communicate not the laws of science, if you will, but the best information that we have and the risks and benefits that are afforded in a particular time as accurately as possible, and to create a sense of continuing dialogue is part of the culture shift we'd like to start to catalyze in a deeper way. It's happening. Some agencies do this already. Some do it very well. Some would like to do more. Others have a somewhat different view. But I think part of our intent here is to emphasize the importance of building a different kind, a more expansive exchange around science and its impact on the country.
All right, Arti Prabhakar.
Well, first and foremost, I want to emphasize the same thing I think Paula just said, which is how happy I was to see this emphasis on listening. We're probably a group of people who know how much easier it is to talk than to listen, but that is really where the value is turning this into two-way. So I really wanted to express my appreciation for the team for coming to that and really focusing on that. To the point about the manipulation of scientific information, in the first week that President Biden was in office, he issued a memorandum to all agencies and departments across government on scientific integrity and evidence-based policy making because he sees it as fundamental to trust in government. And so I think it's just worth remembering that we tend to think about trust in science and in research, but it's actually fundamental to the way I think the whole country relates to its governments. I think very really agreed with the point that was being made about that. And then the final thing I'll offer is that I love the fact that you all, in the work that you did, you came to the U.S. Digital Service and 18F as a model for bringing expertise in, but then engaging and helping and lifting up different parts of government. Those efforts came out of the LSTP about a decade ago. And actually an important trigger for that was the failure of the launch of the Obamacare website, which everyone remembers painfully, but that led to some really important improvements through these kinds of mechanisms. And, you know, I've often thought about the fact that when I returned to public service in 2022, actually things had gotten extremely better. And now websites that deliver crucial information and services, you know, we just take for granted that we actually can do that across government. And I offer that simply to say, I think when you start efforts like this, you're planting the seeds for something. And I can start to see a future where we are much better at doing this kind of two-way communication to the benefit of research, but also of society. So thanks so much for the effort.
Okay. Eric Horvitz.
Well, thanks. And I have to say it was such a lovely working group, and I enjoyed every minute of it. On the listening question, Jen, one thing that came up in our discussions was the notion that the world has changed quite a bit in the way various organizations listen and learn about populations, including multiple digital tools that are just foundational now in, for example, commercial sales and marketing. And these kinds of tools and information sources are quite different and much more rigorous and extensive in many ways than small, modest surveys that are done traditionally. And so the idea that the office that we talked about could start leveraging new ways to listen, to understand where the American people are, what the uncertainties are, to help with engagement came to the fore as a just general direction on modernizing what it is that, how it is that we understand citizens and their understandings.
Comments from the committee on that?
The only thing I would add is that I think that's a very important role for a group like this, but and for an office like this. But it also is very important, I think, that as was mentioned earlier, that we make it very clear that this is in order to understand what the public needs us to hear, and that so that I think people would feel that sense that it's a listening, thoughtful exercise in trying to bring in the public's goals and interests into the different agencies.
Great, thanks, Eric. So I'd like to make another comment that I think relates to a number of the themes that were raised in the discussion here today. So there's one agency for which science engagement and communication was part of their original mandate, and that's NASA. And they've had a lot of time to work on it, and they do it exceptionally well. And one of the things that they make use of is the role of education. Okay, you can't underscore enough how important education is, and NASA actually uses teams of ambassadors who are largely science teachers, but also workers in science museums and libraries and other other institutions where education is important. And in the spirit of transparency and trying to convey thoughtful information and building trust. There are people out there who don't want to believe the government, but people tend to believe their children, and so really putting a strong focus on educating young people on good scientific practices and scientific results they can be really effective messengers to their parents and grandparents and others in their society. So I'll just put that out there, and that you know, I think a lot can be learned from the way that NASA integrates this.
Strong agreement from another person who has experienced the NASA world.
Kathy Wotecki.
Sure, just to continue this conversation a bit and extend it, there's another model too, and that's the cooperative extension model that is even older than NASA, dates back to 1914, and where the land-grant universities have educators in almost every county that are engaging with the public beyond the traditional educational conveying of information based on agricultural research or human nutrition to help them with economic development and more recently bringing data science to local communities to help them better analyze information that they have, visualize it, and help to make better data-informed decisions at the community level. So there's a lot to learn from the different approaches that different agencies have taken to this mandate, and perhaps more resource too available than one agency might not know about what NASA has done or what USDA's experience has done.
So that's super encouraging as well. And we also see this office as a place where agencies can exchange ideas and expertise. We heard this from the agencies that we've talked to, that on this topic, there is not as much exchange of capability, ideas, expertise as is probably optimal or efficient. So it's very heartening actually to hear about the different models that exist, and it's almost like a deep and rich root system that can be tapped into with some renewed energy and hopefully some renewed resource.
Great, thanks for that, Kathy. Laura Green.
Thank you. This is a really terrific report. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, and I've been involved in some public engagement, I'm sure everyone here has, and the Magnet Lab actually has it as part of their mission, public engagement and education. And so we've had visits from DOE laboratories to try to learn the stuff as they're expanding. And I've heard a lot of famous people tell me that, and you've probably heard this before, that public engagement, everyone is inventing their own new flat tire. And it's a little frustrating when we go around and try to educate people to not be afraid of people who are educators at heart. They're trained for instructional design, and they work with the scientist or whatever, and you can make it work. And I think having this, I'm very excited by this letter, because I think it has a lot of promise to really carry this information, just as Vicki was saying and Kathy was saying, across agencies, and to make sure that that line of best practices is held open. And thank you very much. This is very exciting.
Great. Thank you, Laura. It's been a fantastic discussion. Are there any additional comments or questions before we bring this letter to a vote? Okay, in that case, I think we can do a voice vote here. All PCAST members who are in favor of accepting this letter to the President on science engagement, could you please make that known?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, that's great. We have unanimous support for this. So, so let me thank, well, all of us co-chairs. We'd like to thank Phil Venables, Vicki Sato, Saul Perlmutter, Lisa Cooper, Eric Horvitz, Jen Richardson, Terry Tao, and our staff for the efforts that went into this report. It's really fantastic. Let me tell everybody that the letter will be formatted and copy edited before its release. and we expect this to occur in mid to late August. So when it comes out, it will be published on PCAST website. So congratulations to the working group. And I'll now turn things back over to Arthi to close out this part of the public session.
Thanks all for a great discussion. We're now going to take a break before the next session. We're going to break for, at least it's lunch here on the East Coast. I don't know what meal you might be in the middle of. We're going to reconvene at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see, the Zoom will turn off. So come back for that for those of you who are joining us now. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, I'm Frances Arnold and co-chair of PCAST. And I'd like to welcome back all our PCAST members, as well as interested members of the public to this assessment, this discussion of the PCAST report to the President on the 7th assessment of the National Nanotechnology Initiative. As you might know, nanotechnology burst onto the science and engineering scene in the 1990s, when we discovered that nanoscale objects could exhibit these novel and incredibly interesting and useful properties that we don't see at larger scales. We were at the beginning of a revolution in our understanding of the world at that scale. And the National Nanotechnology Initiative, NNI, was introduced in order to help the United States stay at the forefront of this exciting new field of nanoscience and nanotechnology. Over the subsequent years, amazing new methods were developed to probe the nanoscale and deliver knowledge and understanding of how such systems behave. And importantly, we learned how to manipulate matter at the nanoscale, which enabled us to bring to market whole new products in everything from energy to biomedicine. Thus, much of the NNI vision has been realized, such that nanoscience and nanotechnology are embedded into our products and into our thinking. I'd like to now introduce Lisa Su and Bill Daly, who co-lead the PCAST working group to assess the National Nanotechnology Initiative. They'll present their assessment and then answer questions from PCAST members. Lisa and Bill.
Very good. Thank you, Frances, for that introduction. And my name is Lisa Su. I'll start, and then my partner, Bill Daly, will also help me with this. So again, next page, please. So as we discussed earlier, these PCAST reports are really established for us as a working group to review matters, and this is our opportunity for the full council to discuss our conclusions. As Frances mentioned, in this particular case, for the NNI assessment, this is a congressionally mandated assessment that we do periodically, and so we had a great working group on this. Next page, please. Bill Daly and myself co-led this, and Paula Hammond and John Benovitz joined us in this assessment. And we will say, as part of this assessment, we had significant contributions from the Science and Technology Policy Institute, STIPI, who helped in some of the research as well as the overall report. So we thank them for their contributions to this. Next page, please. As part of the assessment, we did consult a number of parties, both within the federal government that have been working on nanotechnology, as well as some in academia, to give us some perspective of where first of all, where the entire field of nanoelectronics is in the United States and across the world today, as well as the NNI initiative in and of itself. So we thank all of those who helped us in this assessment. Next page, please. So as we take a look, and as Frances mentioned, nanotechnology research has been absolutely critical to U.S. innovation. If you think about the progress over the last 30 years, it is something that we should all be very proud of. nanotechnology is now, really essential to so many industries, certainly microelectronics as one, if you think about just, transistor technology and how much the nanomaterials are, impact what we can do in terms of scaling to smaller dimensions, as well as adding more capability. When you think of the mRNA vaccines and, just how transformational that was to us over the last few years, you see that, liquid nanoparticles were used to deliver over, 676 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines just in the United States, since, over the last few years. You think of next generation energy technology as another area where nanomaterials have become so important to some of the research in that area. And it's generated both significant jobs as well as significant revenue for nanotechnology companies. So clearly, this has been a huge and positive impact, to the U.S. in terms of innovation leadership as well as economic, return. Next page, please. Now, if you look at the history of the NNI initiative, back in the late 90s, I think federal leaders and, really the scientific community recognized how transformational nanotechnology could be in strengthening our global competitiveness. And so the NNI program was put together with this 21st Century Nanotech R&D Act in 2003. And as part of it, there was significant governance effort, because the thought process was that for something so large, it would be really helpful to have a governance infrastructure and also coordination across the federal government, as well as a review process. And this is part of that review process that was put in place. The coordination of the NNI has been very much led by the NSTC, the National Science and Technology Council's NSET subcommittee, as well as facilitated by a National Nanotechnology Coordination Office. So that was part of our determination in understanding where should the NNI initiative go next. So with that, let me hand it off to Bill to talk about some of our findings. Bill?
Thank you, Lisa. Can I have the next slide, please? So what we found as we met with the different people was that nanotechnology has been transformational. It made huge contributions in medicine, energy, electronics, and really improved our economic engine. But since the legislation was passed 20 years ago, it has matured. And what we found is that most of the people we talked to weren't really focusing on the nanotechnology themselves, but rather on applications of it to different areas. And as we moved from this emerging field back when the legislation was passed to a mature field today, and it's clear that the machinery recommend that the president work with Congress. This is a congressionally mandated piece of
I can hear you now if you want to give me that plate.
And Adam 240, he was able to start it. You can cancel my backup.
Adam 2, you're canceled.
Adam 211 arriving time.
That's 1725.
1523.
Go ahead.
Okay, signal 4 at 3870, County Road 36.
County Road 36.
Simple.
Here's copy for a complaint on traffic at 77 North and County Road 28, 77 North and County Road 28, 18-wheeler. Tried running someone else off the road. Blue cab. No direction of travel. Patrol 1 at 1726.
Good. Hey, were they able to sit to come off, or, did they leave it there?
305.
Paul, clear.
10-5.
The Tacoma was able to leave. They didn't have issues. You had a minor dent in your back bumper. I'm still here with the Unit 1 to Colorado. Okay, did that one return? I don't think so. There's a little damage to the front of the vehicle. The license plate tapping off. Everything else is fine.
Over.
Adam 320.
Adam 320. Delta 2, or a man down Laredo in 286.
We're just going to need one record. I just advised the 18 volunteer on the.
They were en route for both. I'll cancel the first one though.
Okay, I'm going to be making contact here at the transportation building.
Record ID 67 and 69 will be canceled.